So I'll call the meeting to order at 5:02 p.m. on December 21st. And at this time, I'd like to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and before we get started, I'll just do a roll call of the Board of Commissioner members. Looks like we have Paul McLaughlin not on at this moment. I'm not sure if he joins us later. I'll be sure to mention when he joins us if he does. Myself, Don Preventure, I'm from my home at 6 Wasserman Heights. Ken?
Ken Ayers from 19 Jake's Lane.
Great. Wolf?
Wolf von Schön, 4 Conservation Drive at my home, and I'm alone.
And you're not skiing anywhere with the background?
Nope, not this time.
And John?
I am John Lyons. I'm at 25 Windsor Drive here in Merrimack.
Great. Thanks, everybody. We've got the MVD staff at the MVD office, and we got Amanda taking notes. All right, I guess we can jump right in. The first on the agenda is the analysis of revenue and expenditures with Michelle Holton, the Finance and Human Resources Review.
Being through the end of November, we're 41.67% through the year. Our overall revenues are at 44.6%. We do have quite the mix of ups and downs, obviously due to both the drought and COVID, but at this point, we are still above and beyond our budget projection for our break even to meet expenses. We should keep in mind, and perhaps when we have our budget meetings, it will be good to discuss how our long-term capital plan, our fund balance expectations fold into what we're going to do with rates going forward. Because while we build the budget and the revenue that we look at each month is basically just a zero bottom line budget, our expectation also has been to have some surpluses that could potentially both bring back up the fund balance, but also be put into capital reserves. So I think that'll be something that during our budget process and our rate process, that we can kind of look at all those factors to see where we want to be going forward as far as our expectations to capital reserve transfers. And then also with the new debt that will be coming on for some of the projects for the budget that we will be doing, or that we are doing, that we're working on right now for 2022. The first step payment won't be until January of 2022 for Turkey Hill. So I'm getting estimates of those numbers right now from DES so that we can layer those into the budget. But as of now, as I said, overall.
Michelle?
Yes.
I would like to remind us that we had pretty low sales most of the summer because of the drought situation, yes, and 2 of the wells being down and a 3rd well being down early in the year. So I would not get too pessimistic when looking at the surplus this year, because next year we should have all our wells in operation. So the revenue side of things should be looking much better.
Yeah, and I think that with all going on, we went into this year as things developed, knowing we may just skip a year of making a contribution to the capital reserves. But I just wanted us to sort of refresh the long-term plan. Also take a look at the withdrawals that we have done. We still have an additional $900,000 that's going to come out for this year for various projects that we haven't withdrawn yet. So that's going to come off the reserve budget, and that will all be out of equipment and facilities. So I just wanted to make sure that just everyone's thinking along those lines, that we'll just be looking at different factors that'll play into how we budget, and also any rate changes that we're going to look to put in place. So overall, the water usage, even though we're off in mercantile and industrial, overall, combined with domestic, they're actually at 45.52% of budget compared to where we are in the current year. And we're only $14,000 under from where we were in the prior year. Does anyone have any particular questions on any of the revenue line items? Don?
Yeah, Michelle, I was looking at, obviously, we got a very a shortfall in the fines and penalties because we've been waiving those. What is the current status of that directive legally as far as the timeline to stop waiving those fees? Is that still out there or are we past that?
The moratorium required that we do not charge any late fees on any piece of the past due balance that is back from August back. So it expired in August, but we bill later. And then if people have a combined balance that sort of some that might still be from the end of the summer and some is their next bill, there's no simple way for our system to prorate a late fee. So at this point, we haven't been doing late fees. Our next focus was going to be looking at some of the accounts that perhaps we haven't been doing late fees or disconnects. So we wanted to look at some of the accounts that might have some balances that have creeped up a bit. We have sent out notices to our customers saying, please call us and work with us. And for those that haven't, we may be just doing some outreach just to have a plan in place that's reasonable for all, just so that things don't kind of build up too much.
So
at
is
this
that
time, we
going
haven't-
away anytime soon, or when is the deadline for that? Is that still in force right now? Just curious about a timeline.
Well, right now, it would depend on there would be customers that part of their bill that's past due is from the summer and part of it is from beyond when the moratorium.
So is it still in
expired.
force
So
right now, or?
No, they've lifted the moratorium. It was lifted in August, but because of the way we bill,
Okay,
for us to charge, if we charge our $5 late fee, we have to look to see if any of that balance could be from
Yeah.
the summer, because then that's where we would still have a problem. We can't be assessing if the expenses were
Yeah.
accrued during that period.
all right.
And as far as disconnects just with everything going on, and then now we're at the holidays, we were planning on revisiting it after the holidays. And perhaps it's something we could discuss either during budget or at the next meeting, where we want to go with putting those back in place at what time, and how we want to just roll out letting folks know.
What is the current balance of past due invoicing?
I don't have the receivables by cycle right now, so I can send that out to everyone after the meeting.
Do you
But
have a ballpark? I mean, is it tremendous or is it slightly more than normal?
it's slightly more than normal. Yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely.
Okay.
I mean, we may have 20, 30 families that we just would want to reach out to and just say, let's put something in place. They can always, catch up ahead more than what we set it up, but we just want to have some payments coming in on those so it doesn't grow and become a little bit harder to approach.
Okay. And I did have a little bit of a salty moment in a good old Facebook here just the last couple of days with a lot of, well, not a lot of, that's not true, with some complaints about tripled invoices. And I did share in my unofficial press secretary role that people need to go back and look at the usage and be aware that while in the past, prior to 2020, prior to COVID, most families had kids and family members going to work and school and consuming water there. They're now consuming water 5 days or 7 days actually a week at home, oftentimes, especially when the parents are also working from home. And to
Yes.
be very mindful of that. And a lot of people appreciated that and didn't recognize that. But there were some that didn't agree with that didn't see a change in consumption there. So one person had stated that that person had been billed and paid that bill, and that balance was still on the new invoice. Of course, there could be a timing issue, right? We know that. If that payment came in, right around the time when we issued the next cycle, right? So, but in the end, I redirected all these people to staff and would continue to do so. But just be aware that there's again a lot of misunderstandings out there, a lot of misinformation. A lot of people felt that the rate increases just now kicked in. I rectified that impression by sharing the rate increase information from last year, from July 2019. I also made people aware that none of the current rate increase, the 2019, excuse me, rate increase was related to PFAS cleanup, that this was due to the, well, 7-8 iron manganese treatment plant and the booster station and so on, and general cost increases. So I ran the usual rundown, right? And it calmed it down real quick, but it does seem that people still don't read the invoices, the notes on the invoices. I'm pretty sure we added that prior to the rate increase, we added that note to the invoices, right? That the rate increase was coming.
Yes, almost definitely.
Right. So.
Yeah, and we had it on our website, and I believe we also included it with.
We did a bulk mailing.
Yeah, we did a bulk mailing to all.
That's right. I forgot about the bulk mail. That's even beyond what I told people. So just be aware that there's still a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of people that are not clear on the subject. And I sent them all to you. If you got an influx of inquiries, then you know why it's my fault.
Okay, no, then we will get right on them and figure out what we need to do to resolve them.
We had a couple in today. Amy's took like 4 or 5 calls today about that. And then there was 2 people that came in that were saying their bills were high, and Amy was able to go right through it with them. And
cool.
Yep, a couple of them went home with leak detection tablets that we give out for the toilet bowls. And so she does a really good job of going through it with them.
Yeah, that's what I told people to do. That MVD helps them find those leaks, and so it calmed down real quick once I sent the proper information out. But just wanted to be aware.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I just, on that note, I want to mention to the public, I was, happened the same thing a year ago. I was on vacation, I came home and I saw a big wet puddle in my backyard around one of my irrigation heads. And sure enough, I went and looked at my meter, and the little triangle was spinning slowly, but that means I was getting a continuous loss of water, and my bill was very high. But that's what happened. I corrected the irrigation system and it went away. So it's an easy thing for everybody just to check their water meter. And if all of the faucets and everything in their house is off, there's no toilets running, if that meter's still spinning around a little bit, you're losing water. And 1 gallon a minute in 24 hours is 1,400 gallons in a day. So you're going to add up water, and that's probably like 3 or 4 times the typical household usage. So you're going to add up water quick. But all right. One other question I had on line item 40405. I see the interest income is only at about 4.9% of budget. And I didn't know if that was just a timing issue, based on money coming in that might change or something, if you had a comment on that.
No, the rates have definitely gone down since we built the budget. At the time we built the budget too, we did have some monies in the New Hampshire deposit pool, which was getting a slightly higher rate, but was in the ballpark of also TD Bank where we are now. Since everything has happened this year with COVID, we're actually above the deposit pool in what we are receiving from the bank for a rate, but it's been across the board to everyone that I've talked with that we're all about the same place. So we just have to kind of ride that out. At the time we looked at this,
Okay,
Nothing,
thanks.
these things weren't going on.
And then the only other question I have in this section is on the service charge for backflow testing. We're still pretty low on that. And I guess the question is, I know we're probably not going into the buildings and testing
Yes.
those devices. And I assume if that continues on, is it a situation where we're just going to basically miss out on the whole year? We're not going to try to double up and do that testing, even though that testing is late? Or are we going to just say, forget it, we'll just put it off for the whole year and just get back to it next year or something?
Well,
Yeah, I don't know if you
I think they
think
can.
about it.
backflow is staggered. There's different times of year that we do it for different reasons. Like the schools are, we put them in April because that's their school vacation. And they do those twice a year. So, and then we have some of the condo complexes that we have to go into the units, and we have those staggered. And then we have the various routes. So at this early on in 2020, they said that all those buildings that were high hazard that required 2 tests a year were only going to be required the 1. And we did the bulk of our testing at the beginning of 2020. So that was in the previous fiscal year. So a lot of the money a lot of the testing that we did was in, January, February, March. And that's obviously in last fiscal year. So if we can do that again this year, January, February, March, we'll still be bringing back some of the revenue. But we're definitely not doing 2 rounds of testing, but only maybe a quarter of the backflow tests that we do are high hazard. So that's not a ton of money that would be lost.
So the other thing I was wondering is, I think at the last meeting, we accepted something like $13,000 funding from the CARES Act that's COVID
Yes.
related.
Mhm.
Do you think any of that, like the fines and penalties and the backflow testing that we missed out on, I mean, that's definitely lost revenue, and it's because of the COVID, but I'm just wondering if that is any possibility of being recouped from the CARES Act? And if you don't have an answer, maybe, I don't know if that's something you can look into. That's just my question.
We can definitely kind of do a refresh with where things are at and what's going to be coming out, hopefully end of this year, beginning of next. Lost revenues was not part of simply a reimbursement program. There had been some low interest loans that could be available that were distributed. And there were certain restrictions that actually applied and excluded municipalities and various acts that were put out. So revenues wasn't something we have found the avenue to recoup at this point. But we can look at what new is coming out, and also they keep revisiting each program and how much is left and expanding what can possibly be sort of resubmitted for consideration. So that's something that I once had gone back because they had something on essential workers and being able to pull in the wages, but they had brought it down a tier from their first essential workers listing, but it still didn't include the waterworks staff. So they said, that's something to keep an eye on, because if they haven't distributed funds, it may come down to broaden it even further so that we would be eligible. So, we check in with the various agencies we work with and with the town on any communications that they receive, and keep everything tracked so that if we are able to submit a newly eligible expense or loss of revenue, we will.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Sure. Any other questions on the revenues? Okay. As far as expenses, if we go to page 2, just a note to make on account 60200 uniforms. We did reclass some of the prepaid cards that we have the employees that they're given the cards to use at Working Gear. So we actually worked with Working Gear to set up a regular reporting system so that we can just reconcile to what's been used. So we'll be doing that going forward. And account 60400, that's at 50.3%. We just had the new tanks at 7 and 8 put in, and those have just been filled, as well as they came in and just filled all propane tanks. So that's why that number is a little higher than our timing point, and also going into the winter months. Chemicals, 60600, with 4 and 5 up. We've been doing the ordering for those, so that's creeped us up past our reference point. And then otherwise, as far as expenses, they're all things that we have, we've touched on before. I don't know if anyone has any particular line items that they have questions on.
Just a quick one, Michelle. I think I
Sure.
might have asked this before, but we use an alternative provider for electricity besides Eversource, right?
Yes, that's okay. We actually go through, is it still Access Energy?
There are,
Yes.
Is that
not contractor, they're the ones that go out and find the best rates.
broker?
Okay.
Yeah, we don't go.
So,
through
yeah.
That is true.
Yeah, we go through Eversource.
Okay, it's through Eversource, but Access Energy, we pay annual fee to find us the best rates. But it's still, it comes billing into us through Eversource, but at a modified rate.
If it comes up and you want to compare, let me know. I know a guy.
No, most definitely, especially right now where we're looking at budgeting. So we're in the midst of that. So if you want to forward whatever information you have, that'd be
Yeah, the
appreciated.
guy I know, his name is Ryan Polson. He's from a company called Standard Power. I've been working with him for years. So if you want to check him out, I'll send him your contact info.
Okay, no, that would be great.
Michelle, account 90 and then 200 is at 78.8%. That's debt service principal. That's just a reflection of our increased debt service for the past
Actually, that's,
infrastructure project.
it's just the timing. Those are actually payments from prior years. We haven't, as of now, the next current project between Turkey Hill 4 and 5, and then the treatment for all, none of those debt expenses, how we put them on the budget, are on the budget yet. This is all for previous projects, well 7 and 8 iron and manganese, would be the SRF, and then prior to that would be Continental Boulevard, Dean Road, and then the new well development funds that we have. So this is all debt from prior years projects. We haven't started spreading these throughout the year. We have to talk with the auditors, just in changing any method that we've done throughout the year, how it might impact the crossover of the years. But we do have a question into them regarding that, and they are going to review with us. We received the draft of the FY20 budget. So we should actually have audit. So we should have that to them. If not this week, only because we're also working on the 2022 budget. It may run into early next week just because we had a few items that we're trying to map over from the way they pull the financials together and the way they are represented in our system are different. So it just takes a little bit of mapping for us to kind of tick and tie and map everything to reconcile. So we've been working on that the last week or so. So that's just a matter of, that's when we paid a couple of the bonds, and that's when it hits. But the budget for debt will always end up coming out to exactly 100% because we have an official amortization schedule that we pay by.
Yeah, that's why I was a little surprised that it was this high. I'm not sure if I missed it last month, but okay, I'm good.
Okay. Also to note, expenses are at, the total expenses are at 1.414. And compared to prior year, we're up $125,000. And the net income last year was 561 versus the 422 that we're at. There's a lot of line items just due to timing that go each way. We also have an amount from wages and benefits that's higher this year. We're on budget, but since July 2019, we had a resignation, 2 retirements, 4 new hires staggered over well over 6-8 month period, 2 new positions, and 2 department transfers. So we had significant periods where we were down people. So now that we're fully staffed, we are seeing some of the difference there. And below the net ordinary income line on page 3, where we have other income and expenses, I just wanted to point out account number 40996.1, that is the drinking water groundwater trust grant for wells 2, 3, 7, and 8. So we have started the last few months putting in the submissions, and we just got the breakdown for everything squared away and reconciled through current billings. So you'll see that number there, as well as 94114 is a new category that, per the auditors, for things like the well 3 alternate supply, where some of it is exploration that might not come to fruition to be the ultimate supply or a new well. Rather than going straight to capital assets, they ask that we just record it below the line here so everyone can see what's going on, and we can keep track of it. And when things move forward and become more definitive that it is going to be the source, they will assess which expenses should be part of the fixed asset for accounting depreciation purposes. And these funds, these expenses are paid by the new well unspent bond funds, so it's not part of budget. So that's why it can be here below the line, but we're not putting up on the balance sheet as construction in progress. There's just some guidelines for handling the fixed assets through the government accounting standards that they prefer this method. So that's what you'll see going forward. Any questions? Okay.
Yeah, I got one on where are we here? Page 3, the line item 81900 for engineering. I see there's a budget there of 88,500. And I'm assuming those are projects, they don't include all of our projects that we have going on with Underwood and Emery and Garrett right now. I wouldn't think, because I think they billed more than that amount, or the budget was more than that, but
As an example, if you look down below the line to that 94114 grouping for the prelim CIP expenses for well 3 alternate, that contains Jamie's billing, because we're not putting it as, we're not charging it to be paid through the budget, since we have the unspent bond proceeds for new well development,
oh yeah,
and that's an acceptable use, and we want to get those funds spent as soon as we can on the various projects related to them. So once we exhaust those, then it'll have to be evaluated. Anything that would not qualify under that general umbrella, would it come from budget? Would it come from capital reserves, et cetera? So right now, where we have,
this just ties into one of the questions we were talking about at the last meeting, I believe, too, was a way to track each of those projects, each engineering service request separately, and Jamie's different proposals separately. And I was wondering if we could do that in QuickBooks, but obviously I think some of those would not be, it would probably be below the line as you're doing on these other ones at that 94, 114.
Well,
Would that be how that would be done?
yes, those are predominantly EGGI project invoices related to Natticook and Well 3. We could create a spreadsheet, use a combination of exporting some information from QuickBooks, or look into whether that would work best, or just adding some detail to his invoices and see how we could play around with that. I don't know what level of detail. Are you just wanting to know where we are in the project as a whole? The
Yeah.
grand total, just how far along we are?
Yeah,
Okay, that for EGGI isn't a problem. Underwood, their information for all of our submissions for grants and loans, they actually have a section in the submission that goes to DES that is the ESR, and actually each task and where we stand, what's been billed.
Oh.
So that's something I can forward you if that's what you're looking for there.
They're looking
Oh,
for more of
No,
a regular. So we originally thought of POs, at least that's kind of where I was going with tracking by PO. So any project we assign a PO, then it would have a.
a running total on spreadsheet.
Yes, you could run a report and
We do,
or
Okay.
print out.
We could, we're currently doing our POs through an Excel spreadsheet. Part of the reason is that our present version of QuickBooks, while we could put the PO in and any invoice that we link to it, we could do reporting on. So it might be something that works for your purpose. The reason we hadn't used it is it doesn't tie to the budget, so it doesn't restrict it by the budget totals. So that's why we hadn't invested the time and energy to go with the QuickBooks PO option. We've been looking into other alternatives. But I can talk with Kristen. We can bat around some ideas. If you're just wanting to know simply either at Jamie's grand total project level or ESR, and then what's been billed and what's left, is that what we're?
yeah, it would be,
Shelley working on that.
Oh.
Because Shelley's already done the Underwood portion of it, and we're tracking every ESR. We have the whole spreadsheet, ones that were
Okay.
just closed and forward. We just start, she's putting together another tab with Emery and Garrett in it.
Okay.
That's a little bit more difficult because they don't have ESRs. It's more like it's by project name, so you have to pull them out and pull.
Okay, so then so that will take care of what they're looking for. Okay.
The reason I was looking at POs is because we're entering those to obviously pay the invoices. You're going back to the invoice, things being entered. So if they could tie, it'd be less work for Shelley. It might be something that's already being generated as part of your
Well, as I said, right now,
record keeping.
right now we were just taking, our PO listing does just show grand total for the project, what's been paid so far and remaining. So we could start including the purchase order spreadsheet with each AP run. And then if you want additional info, they can look at what Shelley and Jill are creating.
I mean, I'm not looking for detail. I'm just looking for like bottom line. This
Right.
particular ESR had, this is the budget,
Okay.
this is billed to date. I'm just curious, and maybe like it's good to have a little one-line description here, well to treatment plant design, if that's a separate ESR on itself, what the budget was, where we're at, just a real quick high-level view. I just thought it might be easier in the QuickBooks printout because we see that every month, but if it's some other spreadsheet, that's fine too. I know Ron was trying to compile things like every couple of months on that, but I didn't know if
Well, the
that
trick
was
is
a
to
lot of
go.
work or.
And that's where we were kind of looking back at the POs, thinking that it would be easier to track because you're going to be in there and making those entries.
Right, that we
against
can,
the PO. So I think that might be something, it would save us some extra work on the back.
sure, I thought you were wanting more like wanting to see where tasks stood and things like that. And while we entered them into QuickBooks, there wasn't an easy way by the tasks within an ESR to know where we stood. But as far as just the ESR is $50,000, we've paid 20 and the balance remaining is 30, we have that at all times. Every time we do a check run, it gets entered into, actually prior to the check run, as they're entered into QuickBooks, they're entered into the PO to take away from the PO to be sure that we're staying within the balance. So that can be provided with the AP manifest.
But the idea was to have single source, right, and not maintain redundant documents really in the end.
Right.
That's also
Okay.
that's only asking for errors and mistakes. I'm a little surprised that you're saying that our purchase orders aren't tied to the budget. So is that a setup issue? Is that just,
The
if the general
current,
ledger's not set up in the PO module, or?
the PO module in QuickBooks, it will track the PO, so you can see the PO is $50,000 and all the invoices that came off it, but it does not give you a restriction as to, say, the total budget for engineering was $100,000. Every PO that hits engineering would not stop at $100,000.
Hmm.
It's a strange glitch.
I think I heard that before. I think I heard
So
that before. Yeah.
we've been doing, like I said, we do the Excel spreadsheet. And then as we get into the second half of the year, we just do some side analysis just to make sure that as we're adding on the new POs, that we're still falling within our budget restraints. But we have been looking for both a good PO option and a good fixed asset module option. And we've started to look, either a couple of advanced QuickBooks options or the small to mid-level municipal accounting options. It's tough because there tends to be a really large jump in price when you start looking at sort of the whole financial package away from QuickBooks.
It's a
So
huge
like I said, we
project.
are evaluating them right now. Kristen is the one who did the testing with QuickBooks and said, no, it doesn't give us that restraint against budget that we're looking for. And she checked with QuickBooks also. So, but we will keep looking at that, but we can provide what you're looking for now with the next AP manifest. And then you can just give us feedback on anything additional or any tweaks or different ways. It'd be helpful for you to look at the information.
I have a quick
Sure.
Yeah, I have a quick question on the bank balances. And to be honest, I wanted to ask you that for 2 months now. So finally, I'm going to ask you now. For the 10160 TD Bank Turkey Hill booster, since September, that's a flat $250,000 balance for 3 months. I'm only asking because that's rather unusual for bank balance, especially if it was an uneven number in the first place. Why is it $250,000 flat?
Because we have transferred funds from the operating to that account in the instance where there's a delay in the disbursements coming from the state. We've been working with them to get everything to ACH, and we've gotten the SRF is completely turned over to ACH. Its turnaround time is 2-3 weeks top from submission. The others are still coming in by check. I actually just emailed someone on Friday trying to get to the bottom of this so we can straighten it out and get the funds earlier. But we're working with our terms with our contractors for when to pay their bills. And sometimes things were just crossing. So I put that money in there just so that we can keep to the terms with our contractors. And then at the end, it will circle back to the operating account. So with all of these, the wells 4 and 5 and Turkey Hill, they're going to be wrapping up soon with substantial completion. We may keep a small amount of dollars in there, but we'll reconcile what's left in the balance. And if it, whatever, if it's the transfer, it goes back to the operating account. In some instances with wells 4 and 5, we had some proceeds from past expenses that came in with the settlement that we put in there that allowed us to pay certain bills when we weren't receiving our disbursements prior to being due to pay the contractors. So
you just picked that number of 40,921 and 27 cents. You just picked that as an arbitrary number to transfer over to the operating account, and that's why it's an even number on the.
I put 250. I put an even 250 is what I've transferred over. So right now we've received, so as of November 30th, we had received we paid invoices and we received the disbursements to offset those. So now there's just the 250 that's in there as basically a cash flow buffer.
I think what he's saying is that there was a balance beforehand.
That's right.
Oh, it just meant it could have crossed over. So in that instance, we may have received some funds and not paid the invoice yet. So simply timing, we could have
It's just-
received.
It just seems very unusual for a bank account to coincidentally end up with $250,000 flat balance when it came from a 290,921.27 cents. So that means we had a number of invoices that added up to $40,921.27 spot on, and that's just really unusual.
I'm happy to do the full detail and provide that. I can email that in the morning. But what it was is that whatever the difference was, we had received the disbursement from the state and we hadn't cut the checks to the contractor yet. So we might have cut it a few days later, a week or two later into the next month. It's just the timing of the check runs and when we receive the funds. You know, sometimes they, not for this one. For Turkey Hill. Turkey Hill is still coming in by check, but it really varies. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks and sometimes it takes 6 weeks for us to get a check.
Yeah, so maybe to summarize, I would like to see the movements that brought us from 290 from the August 31 end of month balance to the September 30 balance. I would like to see those movements.
And there's also,
Michelle,
Yes.
if you go back to when you open the account and show the 250 that's in there and then the up and down, up and down, up and down.
oh, yeah, I can just,
In and out of that, there's always going to be $250,000 in there, whether before their money comes in before or the contractor gets paid out. There's always going to be $250,000 in there.
but I'll pull the full detail. There's not that much activity, so you'll be able to see it because we've also, Wells 4 and 5, 10102. Well, that's when the money actually stays. I put we're going to be putting 673 from capital reserves, but to cover the invoices that were coming up, I had put the first 273 in there and we've paid some invoices. At some point, you're going to see the additional 400 go in there that will be covering the invoices that was MVD's share that will eventually reimburse from capital reserves. So I can also have below on the bank balances, I can have a listing of any transfers so that you can just be aware of funds that have been, as I said, moved mainly for either cash flow purposes or in the instance of 4 and 5, it got to the point of purely MVD's share. We're not waiting on grant money anymore. We're not taking any escrow settlement money. It's now all our share. We're paying it out of operating funds. I just wanted to funnel it through the account so all the activity related to the project is there. And then once we're done, we get the capital reserves money. It'll come back and then it'll go to back to operating.
So maybe let's do that. I don't want to hold up the meeting any longer. In my function as liaison to finance, maybe, we can talk that over and then
Sure.
I can report back to the other commissioners.
Okay. No, I can provide the transfers that are out there and then the detail on that particular Turkey Hill account, just so that you can see how we're handling it. Does anyone have any other questions?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm all set.
All right. So you're all set, Michelle? Anything else?
No, I'm all set. As I said, we have the audit that we're trying out to, and then I would say probably, I don't know if it would be by the end of next week, just with the between the two holidays. But at least the week after, we won't have the bound copies, but I'll be able to just email you the PDF of the final numbers for 2020. And we're sitting down this week to do our first pass at budget for 2022.
All right. Great.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can move on to the regular session. And I guess Tim and Pete from Underwood are here. So I think we're going to be talking about some of the Underwood projects that we have with them. If you guys are available to comment on that. How you doing, Tim? Hey, Pete.
Good, how are you?
Hello.
Good. So go ahead. We're just updating on our projects that we have going on with you guys.
Okay.
Why
Peter,
don't you go first, Tim? You can go first.
I'll go first, okay.
Yeah.
So Turkey Hill Booster, right now, they're making good progress. They got the, they're really doing a lot of the work on the electrical. They got the utility pole in place. They ran into a snag with getting the wire and conduit up the hill. So they had to lay new, well, they were supposed to use the existing conduit, and then they found that the conduit was blocked and they weren't able to thread a string through it to pull in new wire. So we had to authorize a change order to do new conduit, and we went ahead and did new wire, replaced the existing wire with new, and then the new wire that was already going to go in. So that all went into 3-inch conduit. So now there's 2 brand new runs from this new station all the way up to the underground vault, up at the top of the hill. So that's been completed. They were going to pull the wire. I don't know if they pulled the wire yet. I know they were really trying to get that done here, before it snowed. So I'm not sure if Ron might know if they've pulled that wire yet. But that's what they're working on. They're on target to do startup mid-January, the week of January 11th is what they're targeting for startup. They have the guys from Carlson and Grundfos. They are the vendors for the station and the pump skid to come up and do a 2-day training session to do the startup and then the transfer over. So at that point, substantial completion is at the end of January, and they're scheduled to start to do some of the demo and then finish up the demo in by February. But we're going to have 2 items that we're going to hold off until spring. So that's finished paving. They've got the base coat down so the site's stabilized, and they're just going to do finished paving and finished landscaping in the spring. To clean that up. So we're just going to put that in with the substantial completion documents as punch list items.
So they have not run the power up the hill yet.
They haven't run the power.
No, I believe he said they're gonna tomorrow.
Oh.
They're gonna do it tomorrow.
Okay.
They were still trying to get the hill cleared off. They actually have a side-by-side up there. They're gonna, one of them all-terrain vehicles they're gonna go up the hill with and bring the wire up the hill. So they're gonna bring the wire tomorrow, and I believe they're gonna make the attempt tomorrow to pull some through.
Okay. So that's one more big piece of just getting the electrical finished up, and and they're doing they got the generator hooked up. I believe they were planning on trying to find out where to put the emergency shut-off switch. I don't know if that's Ron did they finalize that one?
I don't know if they did or not. I get my conversation with Joel is I preferred it on the building.
Yeah.
Or if we could put it inside, preferably inside, but if not on the building, not on the generator, but.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's where we're at right now. They seem to be making good progress at this stage. So.
And can I ask you something? I mean, it seems to me like this is way behind, even from when I started in July. Do we have some leverage with these guys?
With the contractor?
Yes.
They are, I mean, they fall back on COVID delays a lot. So I don't know, what leverage we have in regards to if that's going to be their stance. They're going to say, because there was some supply delays because the booster pump station was a little bit behind due to a COVID delay, and some of the electrical supplies were delayed.
Let's see, Tim, the most recent delay though was they could not use the existing conduit.
Yeah.
So they had to, one of the change orders was running new conduit up the top of the hill. So that set
Right.
them back a couple weeks on that.
Yeah,
With a ledge. I
Yeah,
don't know if John knows.
and they ran into ledge on the way up the hill too.
Yeah, I mean, if there's things that are understandable, that's one thing, but it just seems to me like this has been going on for months, and it seems to me like it's a very critical thing. I would be really upset with the contractor if it was me managing this project.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been some of that. There's been some discussions back and forth. And I think we've really had to push. I think there was a bit of a wait until the station actually showed up. And since that didn't show up till mid-October, that certainly delayed things. I think there was a feeling from my standpoint that more could have been done while the station was being built, in Texas before it was delivered. We pushed, but some of those things just didn't happen. So right now I feel good now because I feel like they are making progress now that they have everybody on site. They're all very focused on this project. It was the same crews that were on wells 4 and 5. So I think they stuck to that site as their focus throughout the summer. And then once they got to that good point, and the station arrived at Turkey Hill, then they shifted their focus.
Right there is actually, a good reason why they were delayed at the booster station, because 4 and 5 was delayed. So that delay is built right into the booster station if they were sharing the resources. So right there is something we probably could have pushed for, adding redundant resources on both projects.
Yeah.
So I know that Keith has that on his radar, but I really would like to see a discussion of our contract language as far as penalty clauses goes, and just in general the levers that we need to build into these contracts doesn't seem to be there. And if it's there, it doesn't seem to be monitored, like the progress doesn't seem to be monitored sufficiently, and the required pressure is not always created. Like, it feels that the board sometimes hears after the fact of these delays when it's too late to do anything about it. So I'm with John on that one. I think we really need to be a little bit more aggressive on that.
Okay.
What was the change order? The amount of the change order for that conduit?
It was 76,000.
76,000.
Yeah.
And were we, between Underwood and MVD, were we fully in line with that decision that this change order, was needed, and that the conduit was really not accessible anymore? That it was blocked. I mean, are we really on top of this?
Yeah, we really pushed because this issue came up in August, and they wanted to start to look at new conduit at that time. And at that time, we pushed back and said, no, you really need to investigate. I mean, it was in the bid documents that they were supposed to reuse that conduit that has wire in it and feed new wire in, and how their means and methods was on them. And so when this issue came up in August, they said that there was some of the pull boxes had bricks and dirt in them, and so they felt that the conduit was clogged. We really asked them to do a further investigation before we approved any change order. And so we put it back in their court, and then they actually tried to pull a vacuum line through in October. So we kind of lost a month and a half there, where it just, I felt like we pushed. I felt like we were asking, and it just didn't get looked at until they had the time.
I guess I wanted to make sure that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when they did, they tried to pull a line through with a vacuum. They were unable to do that. And then at that point, we knew we just had to move forward because it was getting late in the year. And then when they put in the new conduit, it was kind of just needed to happen because we found that the conduit actually wasn't running parallel to the road the way we thought it was, because we had the two pull boxes, that are just going up the hill, they're just on the left side of the road. So we figured the conduit ran straight, but it seemed like as they started to put in the new conduit, the existing conduit actually kind of disappeared underneath the road and then came up. So there may have been some odd turns in there. And, they were, so it made it clear that trying to pull wire through those conduits just wasn't going to happen. And so that's when we decided to do it.
I guess what I'm asking is, has somebody from MVD or Underwood seen, that obstruction? And when I hear that they tried for a month to vacuum out that conduit, how many feet are we talking about?
It's 800 feet. Yeah, it's 800 feet. So it's really so you got that steep pitch, right, of that hill. I did go out, I opened up all those pole boxes. Once the issue came up in August, I went out there at our September meeting. I pulled out all those boxes. I cleaned them out as best I could to get down to the wire to really see how bad it was. And that's when I decided that they needed to look a little bit further into at least trying to vector a line through or snake a line through and see how bad it was. And then I know Ron and his guys went out and cleaned the pole boxes. They vacuumed them out just so the contractor could get a better look at it. And then the day that they did try to vacuum a line through, Joel Moulton was out there, our yard was out there, so he did witness that. And he said there was just no air being pulled through.
I guess it's just a little surprised because I don't know if I maybe just don't remember it, but I don't remember hearing about this in August or September, October, or November. Am I wrong about that recollection? Does anybody else remember hearing about this issue and the $76,000 change order?
Yes, lead.
I mean, I seem to remember something about it, but it seems to me like things aren't happening quick enough, to be quite honest with you. I'm a little less concerned about the money than I am the timing. And obviously you've told us that part of that is the fact that they were working on the station down at 4 and 5. But I would agree with Wolf that we need to dedicate separate resource for these projects if we consider them both to be critical, and that would be my standpoint. And I think at this point, it's pretty much hindsight, but I would let the contractor know that the board is concerned about the performance at this point. And we do have a lot of projects coming up, I'm sure.
Yep, you can do that.
And in, I think, the prior meeting, or maybe this is the one even before that, we talked about the accessibility down at the bottom of the hill, and any parking or any improvement of not having to back out into traffic right behind the turn. Has that been addressed?
Yeah, there'll be some areas to be able to back off and drive out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, anybody have any other questions on the Turkey Hill booster, or can we move on to the next project? All right, sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, Tim.
Yep, thank you guys.
Okay, so I'll update you on well 4-5 project, well 7-8 project, and well 2 project.
Sure.
And it's kind of turned into 2-9 project, but so the 4-5 project contractor currently working on some punch list items. A lot of those have been completed, but they'll probably finish those up in early January is the estimate on those. Okay. We did have one where we had to do a change order because of the radios that we were, or how the communication was going to dispatch for the fire alarm system. So they ended up getting those dialers in there, needed a cell phone dialer for that alarm system. So that is all functional. That was sort of the main item that we wanted to get done. So that was completed. So that's kind of it on that one. It's the plant's been running, pretty good, but I don't think there's, they had, a few chemical issues that they've been dealing with, but I think that it's been working well, pumping at about 620 gallons a minute right now, which is on the higher side of what, they can sustain full time. So what we're doing is we're taking some of those well level readings, shipping those off to Emery and Garrett, have them look at that and give us some sort of evaluation. So we understand that the district would like to use this treatment facility as much as possible because it's the only one treating for PFAS right now. But you really don't need the capacity of it right now at this time of year because your capacity is lower. But, you know, to have that PFAS treated water is nice. So we're, you know, using that. But what we would like to also do is and get the input from Emery and Garrett, you know, and work with Ron and his team, is just how to run that, you know, more in the winter, early spring, because if you tax the aquifer too much right now, and then when you come to need it in the summer, you're not going to have the capacity there. So it might be better to, you know, maybe back off a little bit of that, you know, in the March, April timeframe, let the aquifer, you know, come back up again, and then, you know, be ready for the summer months when you might need it a little bit more. But right now it's running 24 hours a day. So
Pete, I got a couple questions if I could. One of them is, do those wells 4 and 5, do they have transducers in them that are into the SCADA system or into the control system that you can see
Yep.
what the levels of water are in those wells?
Yep, correct. Yeah, we put that in all new wells now, you know, and we've
Yeah.
been doing that for multiple years. Yeah, so that runs into the SCADA system, and then it goes into the historical trending, and then they can actually, so if you ask the, you know, the operator, so you ask Brian to say, hey, I need the well levels for the past 3 months or something, and he could print out a graph and
Okay.
stuff like that. So you can actually see that. So look, we can take that data and send it off to Emery and Garrett.
Yeah, and I'm assuming like our other wells where we were educated on this earlier this year, that Emery and Garrett's got different levels, water
Right.
level criteria in the wells.
Yep.
Did they, I'm assuming we have that on the new well.
Yeah, they
well
had,
before.
I'm
'Cause
not
that was a
exactly sure what
replacement well, right?
those levels are, but I know they have assigned that to each well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We want to get them this data. You know, we were just talking about that a couple weeks ago with district when we had a meeting on the well 2 project. And we were talking about, you know, getting that information over to Emery and Garrett to have them start to analyze that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Any questions on 4.5? Okay.
Sorry, I was too slow with my mute, but just a quick one.
That's
Are we gonna have a postmortem with the contractor on this project at the closeout?
Post what?
Postmortem, like a you know, debriefing of some sorts with the contractor?
There's nothing formal that we have with that. Is there something that you would like with that?
Well, I think you know, like John said, we need to at least voice our concern with that contractor and make them aware that if they hope to bid again on future projects, we will not be able to be as lenient on some of these things in the future.
Okay.
And I mean, I still am not super happy about how some of these things happened or with well 4 and 5. And we spent extra money on a lot of things, and this board of commissioners and especially staff was very eager. You guys, you know, from Underwood have been really aggressive about a lot of things. We spent extra money, extra time, met separately in multiple meetings to keep the timeline, and it was pretty nonchalant how some of these things have then slipped. And I still think that's something that should be addressed with them, unless you guys feel that we really don't need them as a contractor and we have other contractors out there to lean on.
No, you know, I don't want to. They're a good you know, we've had good luck with them before. You know, are there other contractors out there? Yeah, there are other contractors out there that do their work.
Yeah.
But we certainly, is that some kind of meeting that the commissioners want to voice their, you know, their feelings towards, or is that something that you want, you know, Underwood and Ron to work, you know, together to do something?
Well, and I don't know how high we went, right, with their leadership team. Did we stop at the project manager, or did we go all the way up, right?
Yeah,
So,
the project manager, I'm not sure if he's, part owner or has some kind of vested interest in the company, but he's certainly been there a long time. So it's not like a project manager that's been there for a couple years, you know. So he is fairly high in the company, but we did not go to the, you know, the president of the company.
I mean, what are the other commissioners' opinion on this? So what is Ron's opinion on this?
I'm wondering if we could do something at final completion, when we obviously gonna have to sign off when everything's completed. If that'd be the time and the place to do something a little bit more formal, have a sit down with the board and Penta or the contractor.
Yeah, so final completion will be next October. You know, is a year after substantial completion. So, so if you were looking at doing it, that would be the time.
I mean, I'm thinking when we sign off on we're going to sign off on the punch list.
Oh,
Right.
end of the punch list, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then do you want to do it, you know, so obviously we have well 2 is going to be scheduled to go out to bid at the end of January. Is it something that you want to tackle before they're potentially bidding on well 2?
I think it wouldn't hurt, but it's key. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I have not heard from Keith any suggestions on tightening up the contract language.
Okay, yeah, so I was going to mention something on that because I know you were talking to Tim on it. I didn't want to jump in. So the conditions, that general conditions that we have in the project are the DES general conditions that they use for all the SRF, and the trust fund ended up, you know, instead of recreating a wheel on that, they just piggyback onto the SRF and they use the same front end on that. There's just something noted in the beginning of that of which funding source you're using, but you know, they still use the same general conditions. So there is some wording in there on that. There is a chance in the supplemental conditions to modify it, some of those general conditions if you'd like to. And we do that in different sections. We do not have one, you know, we don't modify that, those specific paragraphs, but we certainly could look at that and modify that if you'd like to for the well 2 project.
I believe we need to do something because we were pretty toothless here in summer when these delays happened at 4 and 5. So
and the delays in 4 and 5 were, there was COVID claims on that, and then we were asking for, I don't know if you remember back in the spring, we we're asking for more backup. It's like, okay, you're asking for time, but you got to give us dates and when did you order this equipment, when did it come in and all this kind of stuff. And we were having a hard time getting that out of them, even though we asked multiple times for it.
That's right.
And then in the summer, we finally just said, okay, you need it, whatever time it is, we'll grant you your COVID, your COVID claim, and that's it. You can't come back for that COVID claim anymore. This is going to be everything involved with COVID. And then we finally gave them that extension. But we were, we asked multiple times for that. And that's what we were asking for. It was like, we understand that COVID is an issue that came up with that project. So, give us some backup so we can justify it instead of just throwing out a number. Hey, we're going to give you 30 days. We're going to give you 40 days. Well, what's the justification for 30 or 40 days? And that's what we were asking for,
And well, the issue of COVID is one thing, but I mean, you recall that one phone conference when I was on the call, and the project manager really had no answers. He was unprepared. He had no dates that he could give us. He wasn't even really, radiating that it mattered to him all that much that they were late. And it was very, very unsatisfying. And
yeah,
more so even than that. And, at that time in spring, everybody was heltering, was struggling to maintain deadlines and everything with the travel shutdowns and everything. But the real issue that bothered me more than anything was that in summer, when they had an opportunity to catch that back up, they left on a Friday at 11 a.m., I think. Right.
Yeah.
Every week after week, there was no overtime. There was no weekend work. In fact, they left early on a Friday And that just to me radiates a mindset that I don't agree with. I think that we as a board have a real issue with. Everybody has been doing their part to get this going and to make sure that we meet a deadline. And they leave at 11 a.m. on Friday to go back home. That was just not sitting well at all.
Yes, and that that did not sit well with me either, because if they're, you know, if you're looking for an extension, then you need to show the effort. And I don't think they were showing some effort. They certainly could have shown more of an effort. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to have more leverage on that kind of stuff in future contracts.
Okay.
I don't think that we really had. Please.
One of the things I had thought of, guys, and I talked to this, it's one of the things that bugs me about SRF. We don't really have a choice, right? We got to go with the low ball.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
So
It's
what
not
about
the low ball, but it's the lowest responsible bidder, you know. So if a contractor comes in low, then we evaluate their qualifications, you know, and then if they are deemed to be a qualified contractor, yeah, then you give it to them. If they are deemed not to be qualified, you know, then you can go to the, you know, second low bidder. You know, that's tough to
So-
do sometimes, because, you know, if the low, you know, you're potentially looking at a lawsuit from whoever was the low bidder saying, hey, I can do it, you know. But there have been instances where we have said, no, you are not a qualified, you know, contractor. And in one case, they ended up, you know, pulling in another, they teamed up with another company that had more experience and stuff like that supported it. But we have in the past not given it to the low bidder, but that is very rare.
So I guess where I was going with this, Peter, is, you know, in order to mitigate that, can we institute some construction inspection schedule with future projects that are detailed enough that if the floor is at a level in the pump house, they got to start over?
Yeah, well, we you know, we have full-time, you know, and, you know, RPR, you know, that's a resident project representative. That's, you know, the person on site all the time, Joel Moulton. He's on site, you know, full-time. So he's covering a couple of jobs. So like right now he's covering 7 and 8 plus Turkey Hill, but he's there watching everything going in. And if something is, you know, not to the specification, then they have to fix it. So yeah, if they put in a floor and it's not level and stuff like that, yeah, then they gotta pull it out. But we are watching that. I don't think any of that's come up that, you know, we have had faulty work out there.
No, I
I
would
think
agree
it's
with
more,
that. No.
I think it was just timeline issues that we were really struggling with.
yeah. Would you
I
agree with that,
personally-
Ron?
I would definitely agree with it. It was more so, it would have been something that didn't work with design or something like, there was a conflict that then they came up, we would get together and come up with a, you know, rectification for it type of thing. It wasn't faulty work by any means.
I think it would be, I mean, I like Wolf's recommendation of trying to have a post-mortem on that. I don't know if Penta would agree to sit down with us at a separate meeting or something. Are you still having the, what is it, monthly or weekly meetings, the project meetings on this project?
No, we are not having that, but there are monthly meetings for Turkey Hill, and you certainly, you know, that's the person that you're going to be wanting to talk to. So it certainly could be brought up, you know, at the beginning or end of the Turkey Hill meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, we want to give them a heads up, right? We don't want to blindside them. We want to be fair.
Oh, no. I would say, yeah,
Right.
we'd like to talk about this. I think that would only be fair to do that.
I would also feel better before the bid goes out on well 2, if Penta's going to be one of the bid recipients that, or the RFP recipient. I'd like to get, you know, this done, the postmortem done, so that we know the resolution of that, because, you know, that's going to weigh into our decision if we want to award the contract to them or even offer the bid to them on well 2, I think.
Well, there's a project meeting on January 14th. So would you like to do that there, and we could let them know?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess so. I think, because I don't think they probably want to do an after hours meeting.
No, yeah,
I would think they're probably going to give us a change order for that, so.
yeah. And then
What-
would,
What time
would
was that?
the
I'm sorry.
what's this?
What time was that?
Tim, are you still there?
Yeah, it's at 11. That's
11.
when we usually have those.
Okay, that will work.
January 14 at 11 a.m.
Yep, it's a Thursday.
Okay.
And then would the commissioners want to be there to speak to that?
Are those in person or are they virtual?
We've been doing both. We've gone kind of back to virtual. You know, well, the last one we did virtual. So we've kind of steered back towards virtual.
Yeah.
But some
Yep.
people like the MVD staff and Joel Moulton will go to the MVD meeting space there at the MVD office.
Is that where the meetings are, at the MVD office?
Yeah, that's where a few people will go. They'll go there, and then like I'll tune in from home, and then Bill Olet will usually tune in from remotely.
Yeah, I think I would like to participate, whether, either virtual or in person, either way.
Would you want to do that before the meeting? Like if we had ours at 11, would you want to try to go for 10 or 10:30 or just?
Yeah, it'd probably be better. I don't know if Wolf, if you plan on participating, but I know it's probably tough it's probably better if we schedule something at a certain time, I think. So what do you think, Wolf? If you
I
want-
would like to participate, but it would be easier for me at the tail end of it. I have meetings with my employer that morning, which I possibly could reschedule, but actually either way is fine.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure if we want to sour your meeting and then,
Yeah,
then you have to work with
might
them.
want to save it for the end.
I would probably put it at the end of our discussion. And we
I was
don't, I
thinking
mean,
that.
Get this out.
we want to be clean, right? We don't want to be unprofessional, but I
Right.
think we have a point to make here and there, right? And I also want to say, I do think that the issue was actually not with Penta, but with their electrical contractor. And Bill Olet was actually the gentleman. Bill Olet was the gentleman that was uninformed during that meeting that I was present at. So I do believe it was the electrical contractor that caused us most of these delays. So I don't know if that contractor was the same contractor that also worked on the Turkey Booster project.
Yes, it's the same.
It
And
is.
he's
So-
actually, he's the same one that's actually doing 7 and 8 also.
Oh, great.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you can. I guess that means that I need to voice my expectation that the board is being held informed about any issues and that we're being given the opportunity to have a word with them early on if need be.
Okay.
Can
I think,
we,
Tim, I think we should definitely make that a virtual meeting then, and then we can have, your portion of the meeting, and then we can have afterwards, we can have that.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to figure out how to inform everybody how to do that, but we'll just inform Penta and everybody.
Yeah, I can inform them, seeing that that's my project. I can
Okay.
let them know that we're gonna be piggybacking on to the end of that meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think, that's a different message. If it's the electrical contractor that's the problem, and we're letting the GC know that the electrical contractor is a problem in advance of them bidding on another project, and we don't want to see that contractor if something can't be worked out kind of thing, that's a different message than, hey, you guys screwed up.
Yeah, like I said, Bill Olet was not informed. When I was on that call, he was not informed about the issue. He just basically took it for granted that this contractor gave him the news that they were delayed, but he didn't question anything. He didn't push, he didn't quiz the contractor on any backup information. So, and that just for a project this size and for a project manager in that function, to me is unsatisfactory. But I do think the issue was more the actual contractor. But obviously, if the project manager is easy on the contractor, that means that the contractor may play their game with them, right? So that's where a project manager comes to play to influence the project situation, and I didn't see that happening. So
just a general question I have is, are we able to exclude certain subcontractors from a bid? Is that something we can ask for them or not?
I don't think DES would allow that, yeah.
well, that's where the contract language comes into play. As long as we have
Yeah.
the leverage, right, to
Right.
make sure that whoever needs to do something about a problem is doing something about that problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
That's
when is the RFP going out for well 2 in January, you said?
So we're gonna probably be out to bid at the end of January with a bid opening end of February.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we probably want to have that conversation with Wolf about the language that we would be looking for before that goes out, because we were waiting for that to have this.
I could, if you want, I could do that via email. Do you want me to work straight with Wolf on that? And Wolf and when Ron, obviously I want to get him involved, but do you want to do it that way?
If Wolf's willing to do it, that'd be good,
Sure.
because this is.
sure,
not
maybe
really my
John
world.
too. Maybe John wouldn't hurt to have.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I have some experience with these kind of contracts and the financing. Does the SRF get us anything other than a low rate
A low rate, what do you mean?
on the loan? Are we getting
What
gifted
do you get out of
funds?
that?
Are we getting gifted funds? Is it worth it for us to use the SRF? Or can we go to a bank, and I know plenty, and say, hey, what can you do on this?
Well, on this one, you are getting grant money from the trust fund. So if you were getting money from the trust fund, then you would have to use those their front end for that in the general conditions, just because you're getting money from them. So I would say, yeah, it's worth it because you're getting a lot of grant money. So.
All right, well, that was the question. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's what kind of handcuffs us with the SRF and the things that drive
Yeah.
me crazy over the years with these guys.
Yeah, the SRF, they do have lower rates. They do have some principal forgiveness that they give you. So there are some benefits to that,
So Peter, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
I did something wrong with my speaker here. Okay, you're back.
Yeah.
Keith had actually committed 2 or 3 times in prior meetings to do some, research on the language and what kind of leverage we, can legally put in there, or at least customary put in there in this market, in this, in the public business. So I don't want to sideline Keith. So please make sure that you and him are on the same page.
Yeah, I'll work with them. So what I'll do is I can send out some information right now of, here's some of the language that we're using right now. And then, just so you have that early, you can look at it, start to think about it. And then we can come up with some suggestions on what we, would like to do to those to address your concerns. And then we can present that to you, and then you might have some additional suggestions on that. We can, tweak up whatever we have, get it back to you for review, go back and forth a few times until you're satisfied with the new wording, and then we can add that right into the special conditions.
I was going to ask if Wolf or John have any contracts with some stronger language already that you were aware of, and maybe you can forward that to Pete and see if they can insert that into the documents.
I mean, I certainly don't have any, but I've seen plenty of contracts where there's penalties for being late, significant penalties.
Yeah, and there are penalties on this one, so they call liquidated damages, and then there are so that comes down to sort of an estimate of what would be the damages if a project did not get completed in a certain amount of time. And the damages usually are engineering damages, in the sense of if you have to have Joel out there for more days, and you have to have us doing more administrative work in the office, that gets added to it. There's also damages if you are under some kind of an administrative order for it, and there's possible penalties for you on that. That comes in there too. It's not defined as as a penalty and, so a lot of times what we do is, you define what the damages are if we go into liquidated damages. And even we typically put in there $1,000 a day is what we have in there. We could put any number we want in there. If you guys feel more comfortable with 1,500 or something like that, we can certainly do that. And then, if we, get into a situation where you're assessed liquidated damages, a lot of times it's the client assesses what the actual damages are compared to just $1,000 a day, so.
Can we make it gradient, Pete, so that it's just for the sake of exaggeration, $1,000 a day for the first week, $10,000 a day for the second week?
I have never done that before, and if
Let's try it.
if we were going to go with something like that, I don't mind doing that. But what I'd like to do is, because that's changing a lot of, some of the conditions up front, I just want to run that by Mike Unger, who's at DES, and just say, hey, this is what we're looking at doing, and make sure that he buys into that, because we are able to assess whatever we think liquidated damages are, because the blank front end that comes from the state, that line is just it's an underline, and you get to fill in whatever number you want there. So if we wanted to do a tiered one, I don't think that would be bad, because instead of saying $1,000 for for everything, or as you said, 1,000, then 2,000 and 3,000, or if we did 1,500, for every day or something. So I think they would be amenable to that, but I just also want to just make sure that they agree to it before we put it in there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just think, that would give us a little bit of teeth. And we wouldn't have to say anything, because it would be in the contract, it would be upfront.
Yep.
And they're gonna know. And money
Yep.
talks.
And I would separate penalties from liquidated damages, because I can tell you that most contracts that I see at my work specifically exclude mixed liquidated damages, because they can be mounting up to very, very dangerous quantities. If you look at loss of revenue, for example, because that is also liquidated damages, right?
It is, yeah.
Now for us, that's not as critical, but for some construction projects, loss of revenue is a very, very heavy number and very dangerous number as far as liquidated damages. And therefore, liquidated damages are oftentimes excluded by contractors, categorically excluded.
Yeah.
If they're not, they're actually somewhat negligent if they don't. So
Yeah.
I would certainly like to rather see that we have a penalty clause on top of the liquidated damages. A penalty clause is independent from having to come up with any kind of proof of the actual damage. It is a number that is contractually agreed upon, like John said. It's a hard number that everybody signed off on and agreed upon. And if the conditions, if the supplier or contractor is defaulting on any of their scope, then that number kicks in, and there's no discussion whether or not that's an actual damage or the amount of the damage is reasonable or realistic. None of that matters. It's a firm number.
Okay, we can do some research on that too and get that in there.
And you would think that Mike Unger, you would think, has seen those kinds of variations in the contracts. You think that he can advise on that.
Yeah, I've never seen the state where they have had just direct penalties compared to liquidated damages. It's always been called liquidated damages and stuff. So we would have to do a little bit of research on that, and I could check with some other people in the company to find out if they have ever done anything like that too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we got to kind of be careful too. If we put too much risk into this, then the price is going to be reflected that way as well. So
exactly, yeah, because if you put that in there, then the contractor, depending on what they do, they might get sort of scared of that and then say, okay, I'm gonna add some extra money in there.
Right, and I'm not advocating we don't do it, but I'm just we got to make sure we're doing something that's not going to blow the whole bid price out of the water either. So
yep, that's true. Yeah.
It really doesn't usually, from what I've seen, it really doesn't, because that's why you have a schedule you commit to. It just weeds out those that are serious about what they want to deliver.
And Wolf, where you were talking about the additional damages if your manufacturing plant can't go online, you could also probably say the same thing on, if you're looking at well 4 and 5, if you said, if you can't produce the water out of that, we got to buy it from Pennachuck, well, the dollars are more from Pennachuck. But when you're talking about 7 and 8, and when you're talking about, 2, you're already using that water. So you don't have that sort of that part of the argument on that one.
Right. That's why I feel the penalties are a much cleaner way to do that than liquidated damages.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'm done. Sorry, but with 7 and 8 coming up, and it's and 2 and 3 coming up, it's really important that we have this addressed before the next big contract goes out.
Yeah, okay. And I will talk to Keith tomorrow on that, and I'm not sure what his vacation schedule is during the holidays, but I'll talk to him about, how we're going to go about that. And I will also ship over to you, the language that we have right now, just so you have that. So I'll do that tomorrow too.
Thank you.
Okay. And then do I send that to Ron, Wolf, and John? Is that what you'd like? Or do you want me to send it to all commissioners?
Uh,
Send it to all, maybe. Send it to all so we're clean.
With all?
All.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
Just so we're clean.
Okay.
But
that doesn't get into any issues with if you're communicating by email, does that get into any issues of
only if we
like
respond.
public?
Only if we respond to everybody, which will just be sure that we don't do that.
that's
Okay.
right.
Okay.
I think
we
as long as you're dealing with only communicating with only 2 commissioners, it's not considered a meeting. So that's why I think
Right.
we're saying Wolf and John would probably be the point people.
Yeah.
But as far as like, if Ken and Paul and myself want to review the stuff, that's fine. If I want to reply back to you directly, then that's okay, as long as I don't communicate with everybody else. So.
Okay, so I'll address it to Wolf, John, and Ron, and copy everybody else.
That sounds great.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we will be sure that when we respond, we only respond between John and I and Ron
Right.
and you guys. We're going to take the other commissioners off.
Okay, yeah, okay. That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
So you were, where did we get into well 2 as far as the progress we're under?
No, we didn't. Yeah, I was gonna hit 7 and 8 first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, so on that, the block walls have been erected on that, and we are really right now, there is some work scheduled for this winter going along through, but there's not work that could be done all winter long. So the real critical path item is the vessel delivery. Okay. And so I expressed to you I believe at the last meeting that, we returned the shop drawing to the contractor. And I don't think we had the first coordination meeting between the contractor, Avoqua, and ourselves to kind of go over our review comments. And, just so when they turned around and put a resubmittal in, that, the goal was that resubmittal could be approved. We didn't have to send it back a second time and have another resubmittal come in. So we had actually 2 coordination meetings with Avoqua on that. And we had one of them on November 24th. The second one was on December 2nd. And then we received their resubmittal on December 15th, so last Tuesday. And we have reviewed that. And after this meeting, Lynette finalized her review on that. She wanted me to take a look at a few things. So I'm going to look at that after this meeting, and we're going to send it back to them tonight, and with the hope that it's going to go back as a furnish as corrected. So then it goes into their system, and then they can give us a, sort of the initial delivery date on that. Right now the only dates that they give is, 18 to 20 months after approved shop drawing. So once we get the approved shop drawing, then we're going to push them and say, hey, okay, what's our delivery date? And then once that delivery date comes in, then the contractor can figure out what he has to do to get the schedule done. So at the next meeting, we should have a better schedule for you. If I didn't want to provide one right now, because I think it's still somewhat up in the air because we don't know that exact vessel delivery time. But they are looking at, September-ish, being substantially complete. So
So you said 18 to 20 weeks?
weeks.
Months. Yeah.
Did I say months?
You did.
If I did say months, I'm sorry, I'm wrong on that.
Just making sure.
Yeah. But meant to say weeks. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem.
So, so if we get that off to them, and I'm not sure how much people work during these holidays, and I know it's this year it's going to be a lot different because it's a lot easier to work now because you don't have a lot of family commitments because not too many people are traveling. So hopefully that they are working. I don't know what their plant is doing. I don't know if they shut down the plant, but whatever. We're going to get that back to them tonight or first thing tomorrow, and then we'll find out a delivery time, and then we'll have a better idea next month on that.
Yeah, that's a very critical path item right there, right?
It is the critical path because he really can't, put the roof on until he gets those, those vessels in there, He was playing around with possibly like putting up the gable end and all that kind of stuff. But then this fall, I don't remember it, we had that really windy, storm, and he goes, if I had a gable end up there, that would be on the ground right now or inside the building, so he goes, I don't know, why would I want to do that just to save like a day or two, type of thing. So he's saying, okay, I'm not going to put the roof on. So if you can't put the roof on, you really can't do any electrical work or anything else inside. So you really are somewhat handcuffed in the sense of what he can do. So some of the stuff that he can do is some of the siding and that type of thing. And he was possibly going to be doing that this winter, but the shop drawing didn't, if you figure right now, if you set, 18 to 20 months, so that's somewhere around, 4.5 to 5 months, right? So if you just said 5 months from right now, middle of December, that means the middle of May is when the thing gets delivered. So he certainly has plenty of time in April to do all of his siding and all that. So he can do that, in April and be ready for that vessel to come in. So we are pushing him to get everything done that he can get done before that vessel comes. So when those vessels come, the concentration is on closing up that building and getting everything done. The only problem is everybody's going to be working in that one little area, so it makes it somewhat tough,
So this is a later, this is going to extend the deadline and everything, or, I mean, this seems to me like I was not expecting something in May. I was expecting something in like March.
We were initially we were talking 1st of April was the delivery. Yeah.
In May is like the best possible schedule we could get, because if it's 18 to 20, it just seems like here we are again, I mean, I wish these vessels were like the number one first thing that was dealt with, so we wouldn't be always in this situation.
And we were pushing that to say, hey, this is the shop drawing, we need to get this in. And then so they initially submitted this shop drawing on October 8th is when we first got it, and they signed the contract, and I forget exactly the date, but it was somewhat last week of July or something, so it took a while to get that. And then, then we reviewed it. We typically try to get things done in 2 weeks, that's, sort of, but this is a huge shop drawing and there was a lot of things to go along with it. And we wanted to make sure everything was right. It ended up taking us a little bit longer to do that, but then their resubmittal took a while to come back, so it's the whole process of the shop drawings has taken a lot longer than what was estimated.
we don't have any recourse in our documents, our construction documents that deal with that, or?
So we do have the recourse of, so the additional time that, and I think the specifications say that we have, 2 weeks or 15 days to review things. So I think he has a justification for whatever time that we took past the 2 weeks, but any other time after that is all in his, sort of his control, because it's his supplier. So there is, language in there, it's, I don't know what he's going to come back with as an argument to say, okay, it took us longer. So it's,
Can you maybe just get the word out to Wes that, we're here we are again, we're the things being delayed. We just want to make sure we don't want to do the same thing we did on wells 4 and 5. We want to make sure that we have people attention to the matter and trying to get this thing moving along. And if he needs to put pressure on the tank company, which hopefully he already is, to move things along, just whatever you can do.
Yeah, Volk was funny because we, during the, the design portion of it, we tried to get some information out of them. They would, in some instances, they didn't even give us what we were looking for. We want a footprint of those, this is for the 7-8 project. We want, your vessels with your, where the pipe rack's gonna go and all this kind of stuff. And I said, we want to put that into our drawings. Most of the time, any suppliers, they're happier than a pig in mud to get their stuff put on the drawings, because then the contractors are going to go, hey, this is, they designed it around us, we're going to get this job. A Volca would not do that. If you look at our 7 and 8 design, we still have Calgon vessels in there, because we could not get it from, and we were barking at Avoca, we are barking at their supplier, which is which Sullivan, I forget what his first name is, but we were barking at them, and he was going to Avoca, and I'm like going, Mike, we're giving you this job, why can't we get this information? He goes, I know. He goes, I can't get the information out of these guys either. So Avoca is really they're sort of sitting there going, hey, we can do what we want, and we can take whatever time, we'll give you whatever information we think you need and all that. It's kind of, in some ways, it's kind of crappy service, and I'm not totally happy with it. But it's also, and on 7 and 8, it was, we were somewhat stuck with Avoca there because TIG could not provide, so there's 3 big manufacturers. You got TIG, Calgon, and Avoca. And TIG could not manufacture a 15-foot diameter vessel. So they were, sort of out of it. They, and then we're buying, sort of the carbon from Avoca. So you have their carbon. So if another manufacturer, if you got TIG or even Calgon wanting to bid on this project, they got to buy the media or the the GAC from Avoca. So Avoca is gonna whatever, they're gonna like skyrocket the price on that to Calgon and TIG to make sure that they would never be able to be low bidder on that. So even though it's sort of an open bid, because we're using Calgon media, because that's the stuff that has worked best with the water that MVD has, we're kind of stuck with them. And I don't know if they say, well, we know we have the job. I don't know what they're thinking, but they certainly are not the most supportive. And I think Ron has had, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Ron, but I don't think Ron has been, totally happy with the Avoca either. And and one of the things that I know Ron wanted, is those pilot column areas inside the different plants. So that we can test different medias and you're not tied to Evoqua, you know, in the future if you decide to start using another media. But I think Evoqua is, you know, they are a problem, you know, with delivery, you know, and stuff. And I think they just move at whatever rate they want and say, tough luck, you know?
Well, we got a taste of that during the discussions with the warranty for the media, so I'm not surprised about that at all. And
Yep.
I also almost think that we already projected a delay of the project at the time that we had this discussion, because I'm almost thinking that due to these discussions, the decision to go with Evoqua got delayed a little bit, right? Because we were trying to get that warranty out of them, and they ended up not committing to it, right? So we had a couple meetings at the time, and I'm almost thinking we had like a 3-week delay right there with
Yeah.
with even placing the order for the vessel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So I think that,
and on
Yeah.
a positive note, at least on this project, we haven't spent any added money, right, to meet a certain schedule that is now evaporating because one of the suppliers isn't playing game. So
yeah, right,
that's not quite as unsatisfying as with 4 and 5.
right, yeah.
Pete, is there anything we can do different for well 2 though? I mean, can we require the submittals for the vessels? Like, that's what we want the first thing to be, is the,
Yeah, so
Before-
we do, you know, and that we say that, you know, in there, we said, you know, it's a critical item, you know, is submit those. So to give Wes is the contractor for 7 and 8, you know, and I want to give him credit in the sense that when he got a shop drawing from Evoqua, you know, so contractors, you know, buy, you know, the general conditions. They're supposed to review the shop drawing, make sure it's, you know, acceptable, and then they have to sign it before they submit it in to us. A lot of contractors, the shop drawing comes in, they sign it, and they just ship it right off, and they go, if it's wrong, the engineer is going to catch it. Okay. So when Wes got the first shop drawing from Evoqua, he turned around and said, what the hell? You know, you have this wrong, you got this wrong, you got this wrong. And he sent it back to him and said, fix it before I submit it into the engineer. So that was part of the delay at the beginning. And, you know, so I credit Wes because he was doing what he was supposed to be doing, you know, by reviewing the shop drawing before it got submitted, you know, but that caused some of the delay, you know. So I guess, you know, if he didn't do that, then our comment sheet would have been a lot bigger, you know, type of thing. So, so he did do that and tried to get, you know, the most complete package he could get submitted from them, but he was still running into, and he has some frustrations with Evoqua too right now, you know. So so I think, you know, Penta had some, I think it's, you know, sort of a mutual, you know, agreement that Evoqua is difficult to deal with, you know. So
But once again, I mean, that's where the contract language comes into play, right? Say, for example, when we put out an RFQ for these proposals, right, a bid package, like these discussions we had with Evoqua on the warranty, the big package could have included the warranty that we require, and they would have had to respond by, you know, whatever upsize in the vessel, or, you know, and maybe the price would have not been as good, right, or whatever it is. So if we're clear from the get-go with our expectations in these bid packages, then some of these discussions that make us delayed now can be avoided in the first place, in my opinion.
yeah, so the delay we had with the warranty, that was, you know, we were delaying actually signing the contract with the contractor, ICC. So that was
But due to Evoqua.
It was through Evoqua, yeah, but that was done before we actually signed the contract. So that 3-week, or maybe even longer, that was in more the June, early July timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
And then we signed the contract with the contractor at the end of July. So at that point, you know, the ball was sort of in the contractor's court to, you know, to get the shop drawing and get all that stuff moving, you know. And I know at the beginning, you know, it just hit me, is he ran into an issue with Wes had an issue with some of the conditions that Penta was trying to stick into the contract that he was signing with them. So there was a period there where he was negotiating with them to, have proper language in there. And I forget, I'd have to go back and look at what it was, but there was some, Evoque was putting in some conditions saying, hey, we're not going to meet this. And Wes is like, no, you got to meet the requirements of the specifications, So there was some of that at the beginning. So during those negotiations, no work was being done on the submittal because there was no PO signed yet by the contractor. So that delayed things. And I don't know if that was like a 3 or 4 months, but say it was, most of August or something, that was going on. And then, they finally signed it, and then they turned around and, processed it. So there's, and the contractor's responsible for it. I think it all comes down to Evoqua is not easy to deal with, and they don't really care. And, but the wording of the contract, the responsibility is with the contractor. So.
And maybe we need to think about that. Maybe we need to place the order for the vessel directly from MVD to the vessel manufacturer and take the contractor out of that.
And we thought about that, but then it gets into a responsibility issue of what did you order, and there's some finger pointing there that could go on.
But it kind of effectively already did, because as you said, we negotiated with the Evoqua prior to ever signing the contract with the contractor. So we kind of almost created that situation already right there.
Somewhat, yeah. But then, also, if you purchased it directly from Evoqua, now would be a, sole source type of thing where it was still considered open bidding, even though it was sort of sole source to Evoqua just because of the media that we were putting in there, Does that make sense?
Was there something with the SRF fund we couldn't because it was sole source?
Yeah, they don't like to sole source things, especially something that big, If you might have an argument now for well 2, because you say, hey, we have it at 4.5, we have it at 7.8, it would be nice to have here, type of thing. So the more,
go ahead.
Yeah, the more items you have of a certain type, then they're a little bit more willing to allow a sole source.
I'm just saying that the contractor has almost no leverage over Evoqua, if any, right? So
I don't think he has too much, yeah, because he is trying to do it, and I think Ron can attest to this. Wes is a pusher. He is, he's not afraid to press somebody, and I don't think it's, I don't think he's having too much luck with the Evoqua. Yeah.
Right, and I appreciate that, because his leverage is next to none, because we already put him in front of, we put Evoqua in front of him as a contractor. So again, we need to look at then maybe our contract with Evoqua, right, and with the contractor, and see, are we setting them up to,
for failure? Yeah.
Not for failure, maybe,
Well, not
but
failure,
for again, are we taking the teeth out of the tiger's mouth, right?
Yeah, but consider this, what if Evoqua still doesn't respond to us? Now we're at fault for delaying the contractor. So now we get the contractor coming to us saying, hey, your subcontractor is delaying my project.
Yeah, if we pre-purchased it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
and I'm
right,
not saying
exactly.
Right, but again, then our contract with Evoqua, first of all, needs to have the leverage that they don't respond to us, right? So we need to have the leverage in that contract that when they default by not answering to our needs, as they're lined up in the scope, that they are violating the contract and it hurts them, right? Or at least we need to have that contract that we pre-negotiate with Evoqua, which we did, right? We need to have that contract then at least have that leverage, so that the actual contractor, the building contractor, eventually then takes over that leverage that we pre-negotiated.
Yeah.
So we really need to look at that language. There's something not right.
Yeah,
If
so
if
I
we
think,
s- If we sole sourced it and we almost could purchase prior to the bid going out or right around the same time that we're accepting bids on construction,
And we
it would
should.
certainly speed up the schedule.
Exactly. It takes a critical path item
Yeah.
way ahead of the schedule or further up in the schedule than it is right now.
do you want me to investigate with DES to see if that's an option?
I think we should. And you have a good point, Pete. Now that we have them in all around the stations, we might be able to do it now.
If you explain to Kevin Unger all of the difficulties we've had, you know, this is the reason why we're thinking about this.
Yep. Okay, I can check with him and then I can send an email out and just kind of give you a, you know, because we really need to make that decision fairly quickly, you know, if either DES is gonna allow that or not. Because if we're looking to finalize the well 2 project in early January, you know, obviously, I guess we have January. We're trying to submit the 100% early January. And then, you know, once that gets approved, so we still have a couple weeks, you know, during, you know, the 100% review process to make that change. But yeah, so we'll talk to him. And then if we are gonna do something, we need to make some changes to the documents that we have right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the sense of trying to move this marathon meeting along a little faster,
Yeah, okay,
maybe we can just keep going on with,
well, 2,
yes, please.
okay. No more questions on anything else on 7-8? Okay. So I have something in there on liquidated damages, so we'll look at that. So the well 2 project, we're getting close to being completed. We're submitting the septic design tomorrow to DES. That usually takes around a 3 or 4 week you know, approval time, so we should get that before we go out to bid. We were initially, sorry, I want to take a step back. Last week, I ended up presenting the project to the planning board as sort of a, you know, you don't have to get approval from them, but they want the project presented to them. So I did present that to them last week. You know, I kind of, you know, went over it. We talked a little bit about 4.5, a little bit about 7.8, you know, sort of the whole system and stuff like that. So so that went well, and I just wanted to forward, you know, one of the board members, and I forget who it was, you know, said that he really appreciates the work that MVD is doing in trying to produce good quality water, you know, and do the right thing for the town of Merrimack. So they were happy with the effort that you guys were putting in. So so the 100% submittal, we were looking to have that submitted on January 8th is our schedule right now. I think that might slide a week. I ended up getting COVID at Thanksgiving time, so I kind of got delayed a little bit on that. That delayed me. Also, our structural engineer, I think I mentioned to you before that her husband had cancer. He ended up just passing away this past Saturday. So she has been working with her company on passing off some projects that were new for her that we were trying to give to their company. But she is trying to finish up the ones that she has already started, which is this project, the well 2 project. She does have somebody working for her, but she is, you know, she's, you know, he's more of a project engineer type, and she's still the project manager of it. So she still has to be overseeing it. So I want to talk to her after Christmas. So she's just sent me an email today, you know, letting me know that her husband passed away. So I want to talk to her next week and find out what their which he thinks the timing will be to complete the, the project. So we have that. So that might, that might delay it a week, and maybe it's, instead of the 8th, it's the 15th. So, so then the goal is, so right after that, right after we get that 100% submission in, so that's going to go into Ron. It's also going to go into DES, get review comments back. I did sit down with Ron and his team, and we went through. We had a nice 5-hour work session going through all of their comments, for the Well 2 project. Giving us, some feedback on what they were seeing with the Well 4 project, how we could, possibly address some issues with that. So we actually had a nice work session and worked through that. So we have all MVD comments. So I think when we submit the 100%, to Ron, I think it's, they're going to be looking at it and maybe have a few comments, but we took care of the lion's share of them and most of the big ones. We also received comments back from DES. So we're going to address all of those comments. So again, they saw it. So I think getting approval of the 100% should be fairly, I don't want to say easy, but it's going to be a lot less because we got all those review comments in from the 90% drawings and have addressed them for the 100%. So we're looking to be out to bid the end of the month, end of January month, that is, and then opening the bids at the end of February. So then if we open the bids end of February, typically it's about a month time to, review all the contractor, review all of his qualifications and all that kind of stuff, go through the process of signing a contract. So we would be signing a contract around the end of March, and then the contractor will be ready to start work, in April. So that's good timing for that. We have it set up right now as a 14-month job. So then that would be, the end of May of 2022 that the plant would be online. So, and then this is going to be, we're calling it well number 2 project, but it is really, possibly turning into a well 2.9 project. And what we have done is we have a separate bid item for all the well 2 work. And we're going to put wording in there such that we can add in well number 2 at, and we got to define a certain time frame. And that's where I was asking Jamie, is like, when do you think you're going to get approval for, the well? And he was saying, oh, but at the end of 2021. And that's like, well, we can't tell the contractor we want, well 9, we give him authorization at the end of 2021 and then expect him to, do all that work and have it ready by, May of 22. So we're going to have to probably do some talking to figure out exactly what we feel comfortable with for a time frame for that, because we need to give the contractor time to install the water main out, out to well number 9. Order the pump for that, order the VFD for it, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that go along with that we need. So that's the one sticking point schedule wise. Emery and Garrett's work, getting the approval from the state, and then having that into it. So we have a bit, so we have to make some assumptions in our design in terms of the well capacity, and capacity to pump in terms of gallons per minute and horsepower of the pump that we would be putting in there. And obviously we can be working with Emery and Garrett on that. They're doing a pump test in February. So that's, so if they're doing that in February, that's when we're going to be out to bid. So if we're going to be opening bids at the end of February, and that's kind of right around where Emery and Garrett is, going to be finishing their pump test, we're really not even going to have a pump test before we open the bid. So there's going to have to be some, you know, sort of, engineered, calculated estimate of what that capacity of that pump would be out there, you know. And then if something changes, then we might have to change the design, but that's going to be after the bids are open, so that would be part of a change order. So I just want to put that out there that it's, they're not aligning, perfectly on that, in an ideal world, we would have Emery and Garrett with an approved well right now. And then, so we have a capacity for that, but we do not, so.
Can we, but like you were saying, though, if we plan on the max, 1,000 gallons a minute, and then size the pipe accordingly, we should be able to get pricing.
I
or
believe,
include it in the bid, and then, like you said, a change order, and most likely, if it's less than what we're thinking, it would be almost a credit.
yeah, I think, yeah, we are gonna be estimating sort of the maximum we are, so, and hopefully Emery and Garrett will be able to give us some sort of idea of possible drawdown on that, so we, can develop what the total TDH on that is. But we can certainly be on the conservative side and make sure that our pump and our horsepower is there. I think the possibility of changing pumps might be there, but we would certainly have a pump in the spec that they would be bidding on, and then we just, change it from this model to that model type of thing, depending on what we have for capacity. Then I think the VFDs, as long as we have the larger size VFD, then there could be a possible credit if we drop down on VFD size. But based on what Jamie has been saying about that well, it sounds like it's going to be a nice producer out there. So I think it, we're estimating it to be in the somewhere around 160 to 170 horsepower, what we might need. So we're going to be putting in it'd probably be a 200 horsepower VFD with a 200 horsepower motor out there. So that's what we're, at least, that's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, I think that's the best approach, is just to kind of be conservative and use what we have now to size it when we kind of have an idea where the screen's going to be targeted in the well, and how much drop pipe you need, and that type of thing. And I think if we're conservative, then any change orders will, if they're not a credit, then the change orders will be not substantial, hopefully.
Yeah, I just want to let you guys know how the contract was going to be set up. So we would probably be awarding the contract in January for all bid items except for that bid item for well number 9. And then there would be some wording in there saying, the owner has a right to add this in at any point up till, and say, September, 1st of 2021. So then you have, all spring and summer to figure out what you think it might be. And then you say, okay, we're adding this bid item in there, there's going to be wording in there that the contractor has to honor his cost up till, that date, as, example, September 1st. And then we just add a change order in, and at that point to add that bid item back in there. So that's how it's going to be sort of, set up, the contract. I just want to kind of put that out there so kind of everybody understands that right now, and as we move forward.
Would there be sort of an end date where, God forbid, we run into a snag with the schedule on the well and we can't meet the end game, and the whole pump station is further ahead? Is there a way we can just say, all right, we'll sort of just take the rest of the scope away from the contractor if he wants to be done and move on?
Yeah, we could do that, but I'm not sure if that would be the most prudent in terms of finances for that. If you turn around and got a second contractor, try to do some stuff out there, I think you would probably end up being higher. And we can talk about that word, and if you want, I can send you what we have for an example of how we're going to word all that stuff. I haven't finalized it all yet, but I can probably have that done by the end of the year. just so you see what we're planning on doing with that. But I just want to, just
Okay.
put that out there, see if you have any comments on that, because, I've done that before where we have said, this bid item will not be awarded until X date, and then we added it in there, and it was no problem adding it in there. So.
All right, any other questions for Pete? Seeing none, I guess we could probably move on. I think, were you done at this point, Pete, with
Yeah,
everything?
that's all I had, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I don't think there's really anything much else on the agenda for Pete. At this point, just looking ahead real quick, just so you're aware, maybe Ron or somebody can follow up with you, but one of the things we were going to talk about were trying to get a little bit more information on the invoices from Emery and Garrett and Underwood, as far as, who is working on the project and how many hours, that type of thing. So
Yeah, I heard, so when I was listening, while Michelle was on, and so I didn't want to jump in and start, because I'm doing some work on some projects, Tim's doing some work on them. So there's some, multiple people at Underwood that are doing some different things and an invoice in the district. So I can certainly, I'm certainly willing to help Michelle out in any way, but I didn't know if it was easier for her to say, okay, I have these, POs and stuff like that, and she has the documentation. So all of our invoices have, I know she mentioned something about tasks. So when we send you an invoice, it's split up into different tasks, so like in the construction, we have, the construction admin, the RPR work, we have startup, we have record drawings, and stuff like that. So we have O&M manual. So we have all those different tasks. So, and we track those on the monthly budget report that we submit with our disbursement request. So they're tracked in that monthly budget report. They're also tracked individually on the invoices that we provide you. So Michelle has all that information, I think she could put it together, and and making sure that she has everything. We are certainly willing to help her in any way that she might need that, on a monthly basis, and maybe even, when we can talk to Michelle about, timing of when we get our invoices to you to make sure we get them, so she has time to compile all that and put it into a little spreadsheet to get it to you before the meeting. So right now, our billing cycle for Merrimack is at the end of the month, we do an invoice, and then so once we do the invoice, that's, and the reason we do it at the end of the month, because the contractor is also submitting his payment request at the end of the month. So if you have both, bills at the same time, and we turn around, put it into a disbursement request and get it out,
Yeah.
So that, but we can certainly, if need be, I could talk to our financial, and maybe we can say, okay, at the end of the third week or something, we do our invoices so we can get those off to you earlier. So Michelle has time to put that together.
I think we might be blowing this a little bit out of proportion, just because we've already got a whole spreadsheet going. We've got POs going. I don't think we need to, we're tracking it on our end. Michelle wasn't aware that Shelley and I had been doing this ESR thing because it was just separate from finances. It was just something we were doing on our own. So Underwood is all set. We've got all of your ESRs past and present into a spreadsheet.
Okay.
I think the only thing you were looking for, Don, from Underwood was just a little bit more information on your invoices.
Yeah, because there's no rates, there's no, there's just professional staff, 10 hours, this,
Oh, well, I think we break it out into job classification. So you got a project manager, you got so many hours, and then you got project. So the different, say like project engineers, you have multiple project engineers in there, and we don't bill out the one rate for each, persons. So it's, project, everybody has slightly different rate. So then, so it's kind of hard to, so we list out like project engineer will, total might have 50 hours and then the total dollar, total dollar value. So then we have technician, we have clerical. So we put things out like that for each task item. So, so if we have 4 task items, we have, so there'll be a breakdown of each one of those job classifications inside each one of the tasks.
Yeah.
So it is fairly broken out. It's not broken out in, for each individual person, but it's broken out into, classification.
All right. I
You
think it
want
was
to take a
more
look
with,
at that and see if you want more than that?
well, somebody will get back to you. We got to move
Okay.
So
along.
I can give you a call. Well, we're gonna talk tomorrow anyways, Pete.
Okay,
We're
Yep.
gonna be in that meeting, so,
Yep.
yeah, we can talk more after that and go from there.
sounds great.
All right. Thanks a lot. You guys all
thank
set? Any other questions? We're good? All right.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks.
Pete.
Oh, yeah, bye-bye.
Okay.
What's up, Ken? Being mauled by the dog.
Do we still have a quorum? People are disappearing here, so I don't know what's going on. But anyways, I guess we
John's
can
on the
move
call.
on to the
I'm
next.
here. I just went down the garage. It's getting crazy upstairs.
Well, we're almost about 10% through, so this went way longer than I thought. We're like a whole hour behind, but it was important stuff. The next thing is, I don't want to dwell on it, but I just wanted to bring up some items that I emailed out. What was that, December 5th? So if we want to just go through those real quick, as fast as we possibly can. Let's see. If you guys have that in front of you, the email from December 5th that I sent out, I'd be looking for expanding our salt mitigation efforts. Basically, I want to see if we can move ahead with developing a map of and actually showing what roads we want to have with no salt or reduced salt areas. I've been driving around town. The signs are lacking. They probably haven't been addressed in decades. And there's still tons of salt being applied all over Industrial Drive, Continental Boulevard, south of Industrial Drive. And we got to change that. And I don't see any other way to do it. So
So
I know,
Don,
Ron, you were supposed to talk to Kyle possibly about
I
that.
did talk to Kyle. We're actually gonna meet on December 29th, where him and I are gonna take a ride around. We're gonna bring a map with us. I can mark out, because I'm not even 100% sure where the no salt areas are and the low salt areas. So I'll bring a map and we'll mark all that out. We're gonna spend the day or however long it takes to go around and do that. In our conversations, he also mentioned that the town has already ordered some signs to replace the faded or the non-existent signs where they know that they're missing. So they're already going to be replacing those. And we can also go through them if we want to replace like our wellhead protection area signs, any areas that are missing. So I just wanted to kind of jump in and just say that, Kyle and I are going to be going around here next week. Is it next week? Yes. And addressing that number one.
That's good. That sounds great. On that notice, on that idea, I guess, can we call somebody at the DOT because the salt is obscene? It's ridiculous.
So that's going to be part of my, Kyle and I also talked about that. He knows him very well, the person of the DOT. So we may even stop up there and have a conversation with, and I don't know his name off the top of my head, but that's something we may do as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but have they attended any presentation on this. We've invited them like twice to we had one at the MVD last year. We had one this year, just a month ago, a Zoom thing. Has anybody from DOT even responded or attended to anything that we've asked?
They felt like it was short notice.
They said it was short notice.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know how much notice they need, but I just feel like we're, and this goes back, they just don't care about Merrimack. That was, well known at the intersection of exit 11. So with all of the other stuff we've been trying to get from them over the years, but this has to change. And if we go and set up low salt areas over there and they don't abide by it, I'd like to know what happens when that happens, because that's probably going to happen, because they just don't really care about anything Merrimack these days, in my opinion. Anybody else have any comments on that, or should we move on to the next item?
Well, can we schedule a meeting at their leisure with whatever notice they need, just with them? Seems like that would be worthwhile to do.
It probably would. I don't
Maybe reach out,
know.
maybe Kyle can sit in another
And
round.
that's what I was kind of hoping that we could, with Kyle knowing him, he says he's a decent guy, and maybe we can work something out, and absolutely, yeah, maybe have a scheduled meeting.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in favor of somebody trying to talk to somebody first, and then, at the next time that we do one of these webinars or whatever, then, let's plan it ahead and find out how much lead time they actually need, if that's the excuse for them not showing up, which I think is a poor excuse, but it is what it is. So I appreciate that.
Don, could someone maybe email them the webinar that was done last month so they can watch on their own time?
That's a great idea. Does that
That's
exist anywhere on the website or anything, or?
Yeah, the salt mitigation program presentations on the website.
Is it the webinar video that's on there, or is it just the PowerPoint?
It's the webinar video that Merrimack TV took.
Okay, great, good.
But we don't even know his name yet. So once we know his name, we can get it over.
Yeah, if you can find the contact, Ron, and maybe just talk to him, and then send him an email with the link to our website. I think it would be good for him to review, and at least we're making the effort to get it out there. Whether they do it or not, it's up to them. But
Yeah, that was kind of the idea, was to get an Kyle and I can stop up there. I can get the introduction, meet them, and kind of
good.
We get a rapport going, and we could have some other discussions as well. But yeah.
All right, because I know that Industrial Drive in that part of Continental is in our wellhead protection area, I believe.
It is. And I was out in the last storm, and Continental up to that point, Industrial Drive had still a little bit of snow cover. Then you get to there, and it was black and running. So
I saw the same thing the other day as well. Absolutely. Okay. Let's see. The second item kind of is related to the salt issue as well. I just wanted to get the board's okay if we want to have Kerry to look into the legal aspects, and maybe she can talk to Jamie about this, because Jamie might have some experience in this in his years of salt mitigation efforts, of what MVD has in terms of any kind of authority to create a salt restriction bylaw. I'm not advocating for that at this time, but if everything we're doing now doesn't pan out, I think that's the next logical progression. And I just want to know what we can and can't do. So I think that's really what I would be asking Kerry to look into, is just legally, what laws are there? What authority does MVD have if we wanted to impose a salt restriction bylaw, or does that have to go through the town? I don't know if we know the answers on that, but just to have a legal interpretation on what our options are, I guess. So if the board is okay with that, maybe we can get that message over to Kerry about looking into that for us. Do you have any comments either way on that, commissioners?
I think that's a good idea. At least you have the information ahead of time.
Yeah, the only other thing that crossed my mind when you're talking, Don, is as far as resources, maybe just check with some of the other districts around the state and see what they've had for experience. And you're muted.
You're referring to specifically talking about salt restriction bylaws? Like what other districts are
You had
doing?
asked, you had asked about the legalities and what kind of teeth you have, and
Right,
I would imagine somebody's got some experience with that as well, so
okay.
talking to
I'll,
Gary is a good idea.
yeah. I can contact Carrie and just give her a heads up on that. I don't know, Ron, did you have anything to comment on that or?
I didn't, but if you want, if whatever the board approves, 'cause I know there's other stuff that would go to Carrie, we can actually forward your email and,
Okay.
Well, she was CC'd on this one, so she
no,
knows.
that's true.
All right, that's true. All right, so if you want to let her know that number 2 here would be a go-ahead for her to go ahead and look into that, then I think that would be good.
Okay.
All right, number 3, I don't think Jamie was made aware of this, but I would like to get a better understanding of how the wellhead protection area for wells 4 and 5 was delineated. There seems to be a discrepancy with an old wellhead protection area plan that was used as a, in the zoning bylaw, I believe, as an aquifer protection zone. And it looks like it differs from the wellhead protection area that Jamie identified at wells 4 and 5.
And I did forward this to him, though there's a couple of
Okay.
things you involved Jamie on, and he replied back this morning that he was out straight, but he was going to prepare a couple answers for, I think, 3 and 4. And I think there was one more. There was a couple that he's going to prepare answers for any of these involve him.
Okay. And on that number 4, it's basically just related to a legal thing about who has final authority on determining which wellhead protection area boundary should be considered official. I don't know if that's solely the responsibility of DES or the water supplier.
It sounded like it's something that we would submit to DES and then they would then approve.
Okay,
Is the way it came, I believe Jamie explained it to me.
okay.
But
And I think number 5, we just talked about that briefly with Underwood about just getting more detail on their invoices. And it's not so much Underwood, but I think Emery and Garrett, when we approve the pay requisitions, a lot of times I just see one number on there, one number from Emery and Garrett for a labor invoice. It doesn't say who, how many hours. It's just pay this amount. And I don't know where that number is coming from. I think it certainly deserves a lot more breakdown as far as, maybe staff level, how many hours, billing rates, that type of thing. I don't think that's too much to ask for. I don't know if anybody else has comments on that either or not, but. So if you want to get that over to Jamie and just have him, that we're requesting a little bit more breakdown on his invoices. I think that's enough. That's really all I'm coming from.
all right.
Yep, any of the ones on here that have Jamie or EGGI, I forwarded them to him last week.
All right, great. I appreciate that. And I think we already talked about tracking Underwood and Emery and Garrett's projects. I'll just leave that between you and Michelle. I don't know that it necessarily has to be in QuickBooks. I was just thinking if it's a better way to do it, that's a little more streamlined, so that we're not doing the same thing in 3 different places to get to the same result. So I'll just kind of leave that up to you guys to figure out what's the best approach. Anyone else have any comments or questions on that? If not, then we can move on. Number 7, let's see here. Just a question about kind of memorializing our webinar that we did for the salt participation, salt reduction study webinar, and seeing if some of the attendees would like to be identified and listed, whether it's on our Facebook page or, you know, going to a press release about that we had this thing. I just think we need to do more to get the word out. It's going to help getting signs up on the streets for the low salt areas. But I'd like to promote this more so that the public can see. And I think it would be good, the private contractors and property owners that did attend that webinar, I would think it would be, they would like to be notified or made notice that they attended that in some kind of public forum. So I don't know what's the best way of contacting them to do that. But if that's something that staff can do as opposed to having Jamie do, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I don't know if people are going to be comfortable, and only because it just opens them up to criticism. You know, God forbid they put down a little bit too much salt on one day or another day. It might not be a positive thing, but I'd be happy to let the people know.
Yeah, I think this would be,
We can, yeah,
We can certainly
I
ask
have the
them.
list of everybody.
Yeah.
it would be more in a context of that they're doing a community service by monitoring and being aware of the salt issue, not being chastised for using too much salt, because I think they're at these meetings to find out how they can help save MVD's water. So that's the context that I'm coming from. Yeah, and I just had a question about,
Hang on, Don.
yeah,
Before you move on that one, I think I heard earlier that the webinar is posted on the website.
Yes.
I just realized, and I don't think I attended the first, I don't know, 15 minutes of that webinar. Did we get consent from everybody that this was recorded and could possibly be posted?
I don't know that we specifically said,
I
but
don't know
we
if we got
said we,
consent, but I think we
Well-
mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that it was going to be recorded and posted.
yes, that's right.
If it was mentioned and nobody objected to it, then we're fine. That to my knowledge, that is basically consenting if you stay on and don't object. But if you do reach out to these individuals, it might be a good idea to go back and, you know, get that consent just to be safe after the fact. There wasn't that many people, right? It was like 10 people total with us, or 15. I don't know.
I think it was like
Somewhere around
20.
there. Yeah, we had multiple people from the same company,
Yeah.
or a couple
Yeah,
people
it's-
from some companies.
It's probably, again, we would have to go back and see what was being said. You know, has it been clear that this is being recorded and would be posted? If not, we probably have an issue with privacy laws.
Well, I remember clearly stating that this was going to be a tool that was going to be used, that people can refer to. I think we said we were going to post it on our website. And in that way, when management companies transition and you bring a new management company in, the property owner can refer the management company to the webinar. So they're understanding that there is salt concerns in Merrimack and they got to try to take action to, you know, address that basically. So I think it was pretty clear, as far as my recollection was, that it was going to be something that was going to be out there in a public forum. But you're probably right, you know, to get their ultimate consent wouldn't hurt. But at this time,
Again,
I think it's water over the dam.
Well, but it's a difference between letting it out there or not. But I mean, if it was clear enough at the beginning, that's fine, right? Like I said, and Carrie, I'm sure should know whether or not that suffices. But I would want us to be seen to be hit with a privacy, you know, suit
Yeah.
of some sort. So.
Good point. All right, any other questions or comments on that one? If not, the next number, number 8 was, I was just curious that I know we have chlorine analyzers. I don't know if we have pH analyzers, but I'm wondering if we have any fail-safe mechanisms. I do a lot of work in Massachusetts, and these analyzers are actually tied into the pumping system. So if you actually exceed a certain chlorine level or a pH level, it shuts the wells off. Do we have any of those fail-safes, Ron?
It doesn't shut the well off, but we are notified. So
Okay.
if there's a high residual, low residual, high or pH or low pH, it does go out through SCADA. We do get notified.
All right, so it's not a regulation in New Hampshire that you have to have it interlocked with the delivery system of the water. It's just a notification requirement, I guess.
It notifies which calls are going to the guys in to take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
basically that's what we're going, yeah, we're getting that notification that one of the staff is going in or making that adjustment on the computer at home.
right. And do we have a record of that? Is there like a chart recorder, or is it stored in the SCADA system?
We actually do better than that. We do 25 chlorine residuals a month. We do 13 in like week number 2 and 12 of them in week number 4 out in the system. So there's 25 done every month.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the real time chlorine and pH data that the analyzers are reading.
So there is a, yes, that is stored in SCADA, historical data, as well as the alarms. So I can go back and look through the different alarms that we've had. It'll say, whether it's a chlorine or residual or pH and.
So if I asked you what was the pH at well 7 and 8 on November 30th at 8:00 PM, is that something that's there?
Yep.
All right, good.
Yep.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last thing I was asking about is if MVD staff I think you might have already done this, taken over the graphing of the water quality data. I know I saw some of those updated. I think it was by staff, but I just wanted to be sure of that if is Jamie still doing that, or did staff take that over?
I don't
No,
believe we've
there's-
taken it over yet.
No, I mean, the thing is that we have to provide that, we provide that to them as well for an ongoing. So, I mean, it'd be a lot of work for us here to keep track of all those things when we're doing quarterlies, bacteria, the master sampling schedules, any requirements by the state. It's a lot to keep track of, and where they need it anyways. It's just Luke, I send everything over to Luke. Pumpage. It also helps with that, now that they have it, they can do any sort of water audit update or anything else that we need. They have it at their fingertips.
All right, if that's fine to keep it the way it is, I just figured that it'd be better efficiency for having MVD staff add a number to each graph every month, but if that's too much work and no one else objects, we'll keep
I mean,
it.
I can certainly talk with Jamie and see what work's involved on his end, but if he's just plugging, I mean, like Joe was saying, he's getting the information anyways. He might be just plugging a number in and it
Yeah,
populates the graph.
I do recall that I was a little bit surprised by the cost that he added when we talked about this order last spring, I think, right? We talked about this and asked him to add these charges to his scope. That was not cheap at all.
No, but I think we send him quite a bit of historical data. He started like from square one. So it wasn't
Right.
just giving him a graph and then having him keep track of the numbers. He had to start out, compile all the data.
Right.
Excuse me, COVID.
Please not. I mean, once these are established, I mean, we have to think about that, and maybe we need to look at that for 2021, but if it costs us, whatever, $15,000 for him to do that for 1 year on established charts, for $15,000, we can hire a cheap, office help for you guys and get more than one task out of that person. Right.
If we're talking about graphing analytical results, why don't you just ask the lab to do it? Because I could probably do it with a few clicks.
I doubt it. I don't know. I've never heard of a lab doing that. Do you do that?
I can make it work. I can export all the data into Excel, and from there you can make your graphs.
Yeah.
I would think any lab could do that.
Do we use the same lab for all our water quality results?
Mostly ChemiServe, and then now we just switched to Alpha Labs for PFAS. Alpha Analytical, I should say.
It's interesting. I never thought of that, John.
And we can certainly ask the question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I can get at least a spreadsheet out of Alpha. I use Alpha all the time for PFAS, and
I just
You
don't
know-
see us giving them our graphs and having them update and sending us plots.
no, I'm saying they could send you the spreadsheet, and from there, it wouldn't take much to make a graph, right?
Yeah. That's true. So getting lab results in a spreadsheet in addition to just hard copy or PDF or something.
Correct.
Yeah, that might be something to look at. I don't know. I'm just trying to, having somebody at Emory and Garrett at $150 or $200 an hour plotting up water quality data that I used to do my first year out of college at, $50 an hour billing rate. It just seems like it's a kind of a waste of money, but if there's no other alternative to do it, I don't know if, it sounds like there's a
Well, I
couple
think
things
there
we can
is.
look into.
Right. I mean, we paid Emory and Garrett for creating those charts and those tables. They're
Right.
ours. We paid for them, right? So we could
Right.
certainly ask for them to be handed over to us, and then rather, if staff doesn't have the capacity to do that, maybe we add a part-time position to staff and further reduce our overtime. So, and have that person do other work as well.
All right. Any other comments? I guess we could probably move on then.
Mhm.
Okay, so I guess we're looking at the minutes is next on the agenda, I believe. Let's see here. Yeah, so we got the minutes from October 19th, and that's for the regular Board of Commissioners meeting. Wait a minute, what's first here? Well, in our packet, the first thing is November 16th, 2020. So why don't we start with that, I guess? I don't have any comments on any of these minutes, so if anybody else has any suggestions, corrections, bringing them forth at this moment.
I got one on page 4 of the 1019 minutes. It's just Tim Pulse's name just has an extra E on it right in the middle of the paragraph on line 25. So I'll take
You're
it.
on, which number was, you're down on October?
October 19th, page 4, line 25.
Oh, yeah. Good one. And I see you added in that text, that highlighted yellow text on page 2 of the 1019 minutes on lines 12 to 14 in there.
Yeah, actually, Amanda went back to the minutes and pulled that out.
Right. And that reads fine to me. So that was good. Wolf, are you okay with all of that? I think you had a question on that part of it too, right?
No, that got answered. So I appreciate that Amanda went back and checked that. I thought that was important to note in the minutes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments or corrections on any of the minutes in the packet? And if not, we could probably approve them all in one shot. Is that possible?
Unless anybody needs to abstain on any of them. Maybe
yeah.
due to presence, if anybody was not present at any of those.
I think, John, did you missed the last?
The last one, yeah. Was that actually a meeting?
That was a work
I know there
session.
was
We
some
don't have the
concern.
minutes yet.
We don't have the minutes for that one yet? Okay.
Yeah,
No,
no, I was
just-
at the other ones. I didn't have any issues with them.
I think
Just Paul missing on
Just
November
Paul, yeah.
16th.
Yeah, and he's not here today anyway, so I guess. that
Right.
doesn't matter. Which
Let's
he
do it.
he texted me and told me he was tied up at work, so he's excused for that, obviously. All right, then I think we can all, if we're all able to vote on this, then I think you could probably make a blanket motion to accept all of the minutes, I guess, from October 19th, public session, November 9th, special meeting, and November 16th, public session. Do I hear a motion to accept those minutes?
I'll move it. We accept those minutes.
All
from
right,
those
good.
dates.
Motion by John,
Seconded.
second by Ken. Any other questions, comments? Then we'll do a roll call and John, I'm sorry, Ron and Jill, you guys okay with that too? You don't have anything else?
All set.
All right, good. All right, we'll do a roll call. We'll start with John. How do you vote? How do you vote on accepting the minutes?
Aye.
And Ken,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
and myself in favor, so that would be 4-0-0, so that all the minutes are approved. Good. What's next here? I think we are looking at action items from previous meetings. So we can start with the first one is, I think, number 2, that's an ongoing item. I don't know if we have anything more to offer on that. I think we already talked about some of this before.
Working on it.
Yeah, I just want to have Amanda add a T to Emery and Garrett. There's 2 Ts there.
Oh, yeah.
I saw you nod, Amanda.
All
Okay,
right.
Dawn.
That'll stay on the board. So we'll go to item number 12. Did we talk about this last time? Was there still something outstanding on that one about capital reserve funds for well development?
I don't, there wasn't, I actually have the ESR on it now, and I will, I don't have anything more on that, but I will
Okay.
get on it now.
I just thinking we should have closed it out last meeting, but I guess I'm wrong. Okay. Number 13, I think that's probably still an ongoing item, as far as I understand, right?
Yeah, Michelle's been looking into different things as well as like cybersecurity and stuff too.
Right. Okay. Then the next number was number 17. And obviously that's probably coming to fruition in the near future, right? Looking at language for contracts to aid MVD with stronger contract language moving forward. And looks like Wolf and John were gonna look into that with Pete. So that's good. We'll get some resolution on that hopefully in a couple of months. Next number is number 19, and I think, let's see here. Groundwater quality, PFOA, PFOS for Manchester, and MVD's connection to Pennachuck. We have that information, didn't we get that? I'm trying to remember.
Was that in the work session? I feel like that was.
I don't just want to say they couldn't graph. Manchester didn't have the data,
Well, Manchester,
or,
I think they do. I don't remember what the,
I'll have to go back and
I can
look.
look at that.
Yeah, it was talked about the work session. I just don't recall.
And I'm crossing over on things because they asked me for data. So I've been
Yeah.
giving them information about Manchester Waterworks and Pennachuck. So I don't know if the graph was included in there.
all right. Maybe what I'm thinking of is I did see some graphs were updated recently by Emery and Garrett, I think. So that's why I was wondering if this might have been that.
That was Jamie doing the update for the the PFAS, because Wolf had mentioned that it was just like 2018 on the website. And so we got that updated and reposted on the website. So I know those are up there.
So those were just from our wells, not necessarily from Manchester and Pennachuck water, right?
No, Ron's looking at what we had in our packet.
Okay.
There were numbers in there for Manchester and Pennachuck, but I think it was more pumpage.
I think the whole back piece is grass.
That might have been it. I spoke to some.
What's back there? I'm not seeing anything from.
All right, that's fine. We can just get back to it next
Yeah.
month.
Yeah, there was nothing from the work session. There was no graphs in the work session, so as far
Okay.
as that. but-
And you know, this isn't something that's critical. I don't want to take Jamie's time off of doing well 9 work for doing this. So
Right.
if someone else in his company does it, that's fine, but I definitely don't want to compromise any of the other scopes of work that he's doing.
No, Lucas Sundin does that part.
Okay. So the only other thing that we talked about before is that item number 23 about the PFAS results from different points in the distribution system. And I think, Ron, you did update us on that, but if you want to go over that again, that would be helpful.
So we're actually going to be sampling tomorrow, and we're going to add, basically, we're going to go to any place that we have a sample station out in the distribution system. So we're going to do Continental Boulevard, Hutchinson Road, Parker Drive, Society Hill, Bedford Road, Dropper Road, Smith Road, and Turkey Hill Road Meeting House. And there might be some others out there, and if I find them, I don't want to say find them, if I can remember if there's another one out there that I've forgotten, we'll actually hit that one as well, but so yeah, that was kind of my thought, was just hit the sample sites. They're spread out through town, so it's a representation of what's our water out there. So that I thought that was a good areas to take them from.
Yeah, that sounds pretty comprehensive. And these sample sites are like MVD, like flushing areas or something, or they're not people's houses or anything, right?
No. So what we installed years ago, it almost looks like a little phone pedestal.
Yeah,
You probably know what I'm talking about. They're locked, you open it up, there's a faucet in there, and we just installed them in different areas of town. That's what we use to
Good.
take samples from, so.
good. So how many samples did you just list off there? Sounded like about 7 or 8 of them at least, right?
8.
8, okay.
Yep.
All right, that's a pretty comprehensive list. That's more than I expected, but I'm all right with that if everybody else is good with it.
Well, it's temporary, right? I mean, in
Right.
about 2 to 3 years, we don't need that anymore. So I
Right.
think for
Right.
now, it's a good idea to do so.
Okay, agreed. So as far as adding any new items onto this list, I had a few just listed here. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add on. Let's see here. I know we talked about establishing the low salt route maps and stuff with Ron and Kyle. I don't know if that's something you just want to report back to us or if it necessarily has to be an action item.
I think just scheduling the meeting with DOT would be the action item, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, why don't we do that? That wasn't something I had on here. Okay. And let's see. And you guys are already talking to Emery and Garrett about their invoicing and more detail on their invoices, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. And as far as having Carrie look into a salt restriction bylaw, what is our legal ability on that?
Yep.
Do we want to make these action items or not bother? I guess I just
No, we
don't
should probably
know.
make them action items so that when we go back and look at them, especially
Right.
me, I get the minutes and that's the first thing I do is look at the action items.
Yeah, I mean, we got like a million things going on, so a lot of times we can forget about things, and I think that's the main reason we started this list. So why don't we add that on? Amanda, are you up to speed with us listening to this then? Okay, all right, thank you.
Do you want to just include the bullets from your email as different action items, or?
I don't think so, because I think we might have addressed some of those, right? I don't know necessarily that we have to do all of that,
Okay.
but well, a lot of them are coming from that, so maybe we should include at least some of them. I know I was going to mention about having Jamie get back to us about the wells 4 and 5 wellhead protection area and how that was delineated. And the authority to delineate a wellhead protection area, and then the SALT webinar attendees list if they want to be publicly listed as attending, and if they would object to us promoting that SALT study webinar that we had with if they had their names on it. So is that clear enough, Amanda, for you? I think a lot of them did come from that email that I sent on December 5th. So most of those.
I'm good to go. But on number 23, did we want to close that out completely?
I don't know. Do you maybe, I guess that would be good for you to report on periodically, Ron, if you wanted to do it under your superintendent's report, or if you want to just leave it on here as a reminder. It doesn't matter to me.
I'm fine with that either way. I mean, these samples would be with the well samples that you get as well. So it's all done the same day. So it's going to
Right.
all come out. But yeah,
Well, shouldn't the task change, or maybe close this one out and create a new one? And the new task should read that Emery and Garrett is adding those readings to their charts.
Well, are you talking about graphing the distribution system results? Because I don't think we were talking about graphing those, but
We graph everything else, so wouldn't we want to have a comprehensive package and be done with it?
yeah, I guess that brings the question up is how often and how much longer do you think we want to go ahead and keep taking samples in the distribution system? I mean, this is not an easy, if we're doing these monthly or something at 8 samples at how much they cost, $300?
250.
I was thinking something quarterly, at least we've done 4 already last October. So it gives us a background, and then we can maybe do them quarterly. I don't know if that's, or
We wanted to do the ones in October right after startup to see where we were at or get a baseline. So 4 and 5 weren't really running into the system that long. So we wanted to get a baseline, and then if we do them quarterly from there, we'll have a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good to see how they change over time, I guess. We just got to expect we're going to get a change order from Emery and Garrett, because they're not going to do 8 more graphs for nothing. So, but that's fine.
do we want to?
We can track these ourselves.
Yeah, why don't we start these? Emery and Garrett's under contract for the other stuff. Let us graph these.
Yeah, that'd be good. I would suggest getting a template from them. I'm assuming they'll be willing to give you a spreadsheet of their graphs, and then you can just put in the new data for the different locations, and so that all the graphs kind of look consistent, I guess, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
That sounds like a good idea. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any suggestions or things that we might have not thought of for action items?
The meeting in January with Penta, I don't know if we want to make that an action item. Might not be a bad idea to make sure we don't lose sight of it.
Was it also
Maybe-
noted that next month is the fourth Monday instead of the 3rd because of the holiday,
Right.
and also in February?
As an action item or?
No,
Just
just
a note,
to
okay.
note it while I was thinking about it.
So that meeting on January 14th, to go over postmortem with Penta would be before the next meeting, but maybe we can put the action item to discuss the results of that postmortem meeting, because if not all commissioners are going to be on that meeting, it would be good just to discuss about some of the things we talked about, what Penta offered to do different, maybe just kind of a little bit of feedback from that meeting. So if we want to make that the action item, I guess that would probably make sense.
I actually do have a question, Dawn. Who is actually going to be on that call or that meeting?
I will try to make myself available for it.
We want to keep at least just the two
Just two
commissioners
commissioners.
possibly, so it doesn't have,
Yeah.
would have to post it and would be a regular meeting.
Yeah. Unless, I don't want to take away anybody else's desire. If John and Ken want to be on that meeting, by all means, I'll stand back, but it's up to you. If not, I'll do it.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate your volunteering to do that.
No problem. I was totally willing to do it. I just didn't want to steal any of you guys' thunder if you wanted to do something else on it more than
That
I
is
did.
very considerate of you, my friend.
All right. So are we good on action items? Anything else that anybody can think of? Seeing none. Amanda, you got your pencil up there. Did you have a comment or something? No? Okay.
So Dawn, do you want to explain to Justin what's going to happen next?
Yeah, well, we're still doing old business, new business.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
That's all right. I think we're going to move along pretty quick, most likely here. Any old business anybody wants to bring up? Seeing none, we'll move on to any new business. I don't see any new business. Superintendent's report.
Just a quick update from last month, as far as the stumps that were over at Well 2 that were placed on our property. They are actually finally, they had been removed, placed on the property owner's, homeowner's property, completely gone. Everything was cleaned up. So it actually looked pretty good out there afterwards.
Great, thanks. All right, I guess at this time we can take any questions from the press or public. And it doesn't look to me like anyone else that I can see from the public, from my perspective. I don't know if there's anything else I can look at. There's
Dave's on.
Dave's on there as an attendee, right? Okay. If Dave doesn't have any questions, and I guess we can probably move on to adjourn this. Well, I'm not going to adjourn this meeting. We're going to go into non-public. So Justin, are you still listening from Merrimack TV? So I think what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to we'll make a motion to go into non-public because we have to do that in the public session that we're in now. And we're going to move into non-public. And then at that point, we're going to have to discontinue Merrimack TV and any public participation. So we're going to have to basically sign Merrimack TV off. So why don't somebody make a motion first, I believe, to go into non-public. And that
So
would
moved.
be under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, parentheses L. And I believe that motion was made by Wolf. Do I have a second on that?
Second it.
And that's seconded by John Lyons. So we'll do a roll call vote on that. Wolf, can you indicate if you are in favor of going into non-public session?
Sorry, yeah, my dogs are getting nuts here the last half hour. I'm not sure what's going on. We must have an animal running around out there. Yes.
Okay, that's affirmative. John,
Hi.
Ken,
Yes.
and myself as well, so that's 400.